Recording in progress.
Good morning. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, colleagues on the platform. Can I check if I'm audible and visible?
Good morning, Chairperson. We can hear you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome everybody to this meeting and maybe just start off with a complaint that I'm joining the meeting late because of connectivity challenges, despite the many requests that we have made to the department to ensure that the villages are connected. They still are not. Some of us have to rely on our phones in order to sit through these meetings. And I think that is a problem, colleagues. I don't know. I would have thought that the villages, being key points and all, would have featured in your plans. But nonetheless, let me welcome everybody to the meeting and request that we put up the agenda for this meeting. Let me thank you also, colleagues, for standing in the gap during the course of last week when I was absent and dealing with the matters, and to thank you also for your many messages and gestures of condolences that we did receive. Today's meeting is being held on a Wednesday, as we had to move our meeting yesterday, which was Tuesday the 24th, in order to provide an opportunity for members of the Portfolio Committee to attend the IFP memorial service in honor of Honorable Sithole. Our sincere thanks and appreciation to those members of the Portfolio Committee who did. The agenda is as follows. It is the briefing by the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies on the revised budget, the briefing by the GCIS on it's the strat plan, the annual performance and the budget, and then the GCIS and MDDA on the strat plan and annual performance, and I'm assuming budget has been left out there, and then the adoption of the oversight report to Gauteng. Before I call for the adoption of the agenda, may I check if we have any apologies for today's meeting?
Good day, Chairperson. Yes, we have apologies, Chairperson. We have apologies for the Minister, DCDT, and the Deputy Minister who is overseas, traveling on official business. We have apology for the Minister in the Presidency who's at a Cabinet meeting. The acting DG in the Cabinet Presidency is also apologized, GCIS. Thank you, Chairperson. And Mr. Stoll, one of our members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, that being the case, who is leading DCDT in this meeting?
Good morning, Chair. If I may interrupt you, sorry for that. I just got a call from Honorable Makubela. He will be joining us a bit later.
Thank you. Well received, Honorable Shongwe. Who is leading the DCDT delegation with both the Minister and the Deputy Minister absent?
We have not heard anything yet, Chairperson, but I think Ms. Marais is online. She can just check for us.
Okay. Colleagues, the agenda has been put before you. May I call for an adoption of the agenda? Honorable Subrathi?
Chairperson, good morning. I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much. May I call for a seconder?
Chair.
Seconded.
Thank you, Honorable Shongo, Honorable Vilakazi. Can you please?
Chair,
Yes, sir.
excuse my confusion. Let me put my camera on. Good morning, Chair. I note the first item on the agenda, but I remember on inquiry that it was confirmed that there is not a report on those items from the DCDT that are on the agenda. Can you please clarify whether we do have that item 1 indeed on the agenda or not?
Thank you very much, Honorable Shongwe. It is part of the reason why I was asking who's leading the DCDT delegation here. This is an agenda of the Portfolio Committee that had been circulated, adopted by members, obviously with changes, 1 or 2 to dates. Last week on the agenda, you had the issue of any amendments or revisions to the APP strat plan and budget of the department. Now, we've received a letter indicating late tabling from the department, and this is the second letter this week. So I assumed that we are going to get an explanation from the department. Otherwise, we will take it that we are to proceed. Now, with nobody here from the department, I'm not sure where that explanation is meant to come from. Is there anybody able to shed light on this matter?
I'm checking with Ms. Anthony, Chairperson.
Good morning, Chair.
Yes, DG. DM, please switch off your camera. Yes, DG.
Good morning, Chair. Apologies. We just joined multiple meetings on our side. Chair, my understanding was, and I want to good morning to the Portfolio Committee members, the Deputy Minister on the platform, and colleagues. My understanding, Chair, was that the letter was sent from the Office of the Minister. I'm just trying to ascertain that. I want to perhaps do an apology on that. There is a revision that is currently under discussion on the proposed APP. Unfortunately, due to the Minister and the Deputy Minister being out of the country, it has led to further delays. We had in the first letter that was sent to the Portfolio Committee indicated that we were going to submit by the 20th, and I know that that date was not honored. I want to sincerely apologize for that. And I think the revised letter that was sent to your office, Chair, is now requesting that it be tabled on the 26th of June. I hope it then provides clarity. Thank you very much.
DG, thank you very much. I'm not sure though if that is an adequate explanation, and I want to say this because we are meant to debate this budget vote. Initially, it was scheduled for this week. We had given sufficient time last week. We acceded to the request of the 20th. And now we're being told that it is on the 26th. And I'm sure, as the DG will appreciate, it does not mean that once you table, the Speaker refers that matter to us immediately. I saw a very informal text message coming in saying you are requesting that this matter must move to Friday. I don't think that is how we should be handling one another. Members are still to prepare for the debates, which are happening, I think, on the 1st or the 2nd. So I do take a serious exception to the issues that are being raised here. And I don't think that the fact that the Minister and the DM are traveling means that where they are not able to attend to the business of government, and certainly would want to inconvenience Parliament in this way. I think we've been reasonable. However, this is just totally unacceptable. Honorable Subrathi?
Chairperson, I think the minister has sent yourself a letter, and I think it would be prudent that for the record, that letter be read out in this meeting, because then we will record the explanation afforded by the minister to yourself and through yourself to this committee. He does provide an explanation. I don't want to guess it, but I think it would be appropriate given the contents of that letter. It's very brief that it be read for the records of this meeting. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We will take that recommendation. Can I ask the Secretariat to put up the letter from the minister?
I'll just find it, Chairperson. 1 second, Chair.
Maybe while Hajira is doing that, could I get a guidance from Secretariat whether we are in a position to be able to schedule this item for Friday? What is your experience on how long things take to be referred from the Speaker's office to the Portfolio Committee? Mr. Ngoma?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning and good morning to members. Chairperson, if the tabling is to be done tomorrow, we can only hope that that matter would then be tabled and referred to the committee tomorrow. But in many instances, that doesn't happen that way. We can expect perhaps the referral of this on the ATC of Friday or on the ATC of Monday. So that is the challenge that we are sitting with, Chairperson, as you had also indicated in your opening, that even if the department's tables tomorrow, we're still sitting with the challenge as the debate on the budget vote of the department is scheduled for July the 2nd. As such, Chairperson, I have already started making consultations with the technical programming committee via my immediate manager. I'm expecting to get some form of response in that regard on what impact will this have on the parliamentary agenda. Chairperson, I hope I had responded, and if Hajira can give me the co-host rights, I do have the letter ready, Chair, that I don't have the rights. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. Can I check with the advisors in terms now of the timing and the scheduling of the committee report on the budget vote? Because this inconvenience requires that we must now find a new time for the committee report on the budget vote, which must be adopted even before. May I check, Dr. Mitupi, what the implication is on your side?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. The implication is that, Chair, it's one of those reports with a whole lot of entities. Just show my camera. So there's a lot of information to process, Chair. I mean, it's about 11 entities in the department, but we have, myself and Mr. Malek, we've proactively, started at least populating information that we have. So when the department come and present, at least to be left with just the department and the recommendations. Otherwise, it's really a day or two, at the most 3 days to compile the, such a big report, Chair. So it would really be a very, very tight one. But we have sort of, as indicated, proactively started, compiling information that we have. But at the most, 3 days, for such a report we put together.
Thank you. And then
we can try and put it in 2 days. We can try and put it in 2 days, Chair. But at the most, 3 days would be much more practical. Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I've asked the committee staff to respond to these issues, because I do not want the department leaving here and thinking that we're just being difficult. It's a day or two. There's a lot that goes into the work of the committee for us to be ready even to get to that budget vote. And as far as I'm concerned and where I'm sitting, I'm not seeing how we're going to make the 1st or 2nd of July. I'm not sure what the date is. Nonetheless, do we have the letter up as recommended by Honorable Subrathi?
My apologies, Chair. I'm sharing the letter. Thank you, Chairperson. That's the letter on the screen that we were copied on by Ms. Maria when she sent it to the Speaker regarding the tabling of the annual report. I'm not sure if it's network issues from my side. The letter is not doesn't want, but I will read it directly, Chair, from the one that I have here. All right, the tabling of the dear Honorable Speaker, and the subject is the delayed tabling of the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies 2025-2030 Strategic Plan and updated 2025-26 Annual Performance Plan. The tabling of the strategic plan and annual performance plan to Parliament is a statutory and compliance obligation in terms of Chapter 5 of the Public Finance Management Act. However, the department has not yet tabled the updated APP as required. The delay has largely arisen from the necessary briefing to me as the Minister on the proposed amendments to the strategic plan and the 2025-26 APP not being finalized. This, in turn, has delayed the appropriate consideration, approval, and tabling of the updated documents. Given the seriousness of this non-compliance, the Ministry and the Department will be expected to put in place appropriate consequence management measures to address the shortcomings and to prevent any recurrence. I have convened an urgent meeting to address this matter, and I will ensure that the required documentation is approved and submitted. In light of the above, I respectfully request the updated APP be tabled on or before 26 June 2025. Thank you for your consideration. The letter is from the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngoma. I suppose that that's the same reason that the DG had given us. Maybe to get off this point, because I don't want to belabor it, I hope the department remembers that when they last tabled the strategic plan, the annual performance plan, as well as the budget, this committee was very clear that there were a number of issues that we were uncomfortable about, that we needed responses to prior to approving the budget. So I'm hoping that the department is not thinking that this is a tick box exercise. They will just table those documents and then it's all good to go for next week. We still expect the responses that we had sent to you with a deadline, if I was not mistaken at the time, which was the 9th of June. Those have not yet been forthcoming. You are giving us updated information. You expect us then by the 1st of June to go and support your budget vote. I do think there's a problem, and I hope that you're aware of it. And I request that the Secretariat continues to engage with the relevant colleagues on programming and to bring to their attention these challenges that we're facing with regards to this budget vote. With that being said, then on this matter, may we please move on to the second item of the agenda, which is the Government Communication and Information System and the Media Development and Diversity Agency in relation to their 2025 to 2030 strategic plan, their annual performance plan for 2025-26, and the budget over the MTF with its annual components. Honorable Deputy Minister, my sincere apologies. I did not greet you at the start of the meeting. As always, you are welcome to the meeting. One day we hope to be favored by the presence of the Minister. But that being said, please may I hand over to you to lead the presentation of the GCIS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to members of the Portfolio Committee, management and staff of GCIS and MDDA present here, distinguished members of the Portfolio Committee, and all other colleagues that are present in this platform. Chairperson, it is indeed an honor to have been entrusted with sharing the final details of the 2025-2030 strategic plan and the 2025-2026 annual performance plan of the GCIS and the MDDA for the 7th administration. The strategic plans and APPs of GCIS and the MDDA are key in realizing the three priorities of the medium-term development plan, which is anchored on the 2025 Cabinet-approved National Communication Strategic Framework, which guides communication system as a whole. Chairperson, tomorrow marks the 70th anniversary since the adoption of the Freedom Charter, a seminal document that inspired the struggle of our people for freedom and liberation of all South Africans. It is the foundational document for the South African Constitution. Since 1994, we have worked to undo the many evils of the past. South Africans from all races are encouraged to reflect on our achievements and find ways to build on the gains we've made to improve the lives of the people. There's greater requirement for government to communicate our remarkable achievements and the challenges we face. Chairperson, what are we bringing to the people of South Africa through this August House? We have committed ourselves to regular, accurate, and timeless delivery of government programs, policies, and activities by the government communication system led by the GCIS. Ministerial cluster briefing at national, provincial, and local levels will be undertaken. We have sharpened our government communication performance and monitoring tool to go beyond national departments. To this end, our government communication excellence tool, which monitors government communication, has been updated to reflect such changes. The tracker and GSET tool result will be presented before Cabinet to ensure maximum adherence to the notion of empowered citizenry. Furthermore, GCIS media content analysis report will be compiled for submission to Cabinet. This media analysis report focuses on Cabinet ministers' visibility in the media and service delivery rendered on a quarterly basis. This report, together with the revised government communication policy, will ensure that ministers, deputy ministers, DGs, and all authorized officials in government are constantly communicating with citizens. This new approach is informed by our tracker, which found that government communication remains largely event-driven or reactive, limiting government's ability to shape and lead agenda. As a result, most of the coverage remain neutral and lack sustained narratives that highlight impact of government services. It is also found that an overwhelming majority of our campaigns are driven in English. Chairperson, I've directed that the media buying policy, which was developed in 2018 and which has not been enforceable, be taken to Cabinet for approval. This policy will go a long way in assisting government to support and sustain community media. Chairperson, government communication coordinated by the GCIS across government and guided by a 5-year National Communication Strategic Framework relies on limited and non-NCSF aligned resources within individual departments. As a result, key national campaigns and cross-cutting programs are underfunded and not fully implemented. There is therefore an urgent need for GCIS to be provided with funding to fully implement the National Communication Strategic Framework and to be fully effective in the MTDP period. Chairperson, we have proposed through a document that is currently in the hands of the Forum of South African Director Generals that funding should be provided for the implementation of the following campaigns: inclusive growth and job creation, driving inclusive growth and job creation and unemployment, government business partnership, the presidential employment stimulus, phase 2 of Operation Vulindlela, government opportunities campaign, skills development, SMME support, and local government elections and support. Chairperson, on the national dialogue and the role of GCIS, the President has pronounced on the national dialogue. While the strategic plan and the APP development preceded this important initiative, GCIS, Brand SA, and the MDDA will play a significant role in mobilizing community participation and awareness creation. Chairperson, on the G20 presidency, the GCIS and Brand SA have been allocated funding for G20 outreach program. We have made sure that a bigger portion of the budget is allocated to community media. While we've already begun running this campaign, work is also underway in preparation for the G20 summit. Chairperson, we also meet at a time of heightened political or geopolitical tensions along with global uncertainty, and every day seems to bring new challenges. The month and years ahead are likely to test our resolve as a nation and people, and navigating these choppy waters will require steadfast hand. As GCIS, we stand ready to rise to the occasion by using the power of communication and citizen engagement to move our nation forward. In the APP period, we will also focus on better understanding the reach of our products and platforms. These will include tracking the response rate to citizen queries directed to GCIS and social media platforms. We will also trace the growth in the number of reads on SA news stories, along with the growth in users of Vuk'uzenzele website. These will allow us to further refine these platforms so that they better match the needs of citizens and audiences. Chairperson, work will be undertaken to further diversify media platform sources used in government campaigns. In doing so, GCIS will undertake public education and awareness initiatives, as well as community media sustainability support initiatives. In supporting the community media sector, the GCIS aim to increase advertising spend on community media by GCIS. On the MDDA, we are continuously in discussions with relevant stakeholders on the need to avoid regulation for failure. The GCIS, working with MDDA, will provide an answer to the question of community media sustainability. The question is, at what point will South Africa reach a state true media diversity? During the next financial years, we'll produce a media diversity index. This will assist to focus only on areas where there's no community media outlets. We have also had to clarify the point that grant funding, which is a trailblazer program, is limited by the fact that broadcast levy are received after the financial year of the levy-paying entities. This results in the MDDA in NS funding stations around Q3 and Q4. On the policy front, a number of exciting initiatives are in the pipeline. These include the finalization of the MDDA amendment bill and the assessment of the contribution of Brand SA and MDDA to national policy imperatives. In closing, I wish to thank the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies for your continued support, Chairperson, your insight and constructive oversight. I thank you. At this point, Chair, let me hand over to GCIS. Let me also acknowledge in the platform the presence of the Chairperson of the Board of MDDA, Dade Professor Matebula, who is also joined by the CEO. I will, at this point, Chair, hand over to Nomkosi to lead our presentation, which will be followed by the presentation by the CFO, and the next presentation will be led by MDDA, the Board Chairperson, the CEO, and the CFO. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairperson, Deputy Minister, DGs, and colleagues on the platform. I present to you the strategic plan for the period 2025 to 2030, as well as the APP for the 25-26 financial year. The laws that apply and prescripts that regulate our work as the GCIS have remained relatively unchanged. We are, however, engaged with the process of reviewing the MDDA Act through the MDDA Amendment Bill, and a process is currently underway to present to Cabinet a revision of the government communication policy, the last version of which was presented in August 2018. Our vision remains to empower South Africans through communication excellence, The vision and the values of diversity, openness and transparency, honesty and integrity, as well as professionalism, form the anchor of the way in which we conduct our business. Focusing on the strategic plan, Chairperson, we conducted a situational analysis that highlighted the following key aspects. We looked at performance of the revised strategic plan for the period 2020 to 25, looking at how far we had advanced the outcome indicators that we had set for that period. During the MTSF 2019 to 2024, the GCIS had also committed to assessing the extent of compliance to the government communication policy at a national level, as well as undertaking periodic surveys, such as the tracker, to assess the level of trust in government across all three spheres. We had a national communication strategic framework that was covering the same period of 2019-2024 as the MTSF. And we also reflected then on the performance of that period, as well as used that to inform lessons in the development of the new NCSF, which the Deputy Minister has referenced being approved by Cabinet in February of the current calendar year. The mapping of our products and platforms to the government segmentation model was undertaken to determine whether or not, as the government communication and information system, we had a product or a platform that was specifically targeted to the 5 segments of the government segmentation model. The findings of that exercise also linked with an analysis of the performance of products and platforms, which reflected on the usage of language, the preferred mediums of transmission of communication messages, as well as the overall reach of those platforms and those products. We did an assessment of communication sector trends, as well as reflected on national dynamics to ascertain what would then be the context within which we would frame the new strategic plan and set the targets for the period 2025 to 2030. From the situational analysis, Chairperson, we are quite comfortable that the previous outcomes that we had determined as an organization remained relevant and applicable. These 4 outcomes are informed and empowered citizens, a well-functioning government communication system, us driving the transformation of mainstream print and digital media, advertising and community media, as well as improved governance and service excellence. The combination of the situational analysis, as well as putting together the theory of change around how we would structure ourselves, what would be the outcomes and inputs we would work towards attaining our vision of empowering South Africans through communication excellence. This diagram then depicts the theory of change that emerged from that exercise, and the context remains unchanged, Chairperson. We still have no policy instrument. We are operating in an environment where there is a multiplicity of voices and channels. We have 12 official languages, and the situational analysis very clearly showed a slant towards the extensive usage of English as the preferred language for communication. And we then reflected on what were the approaches at our disposal to ensure improved success, considering the fact that we still don't have a policy instrument, that communication is still both a concurrent and a transversal function, and with the other issues that I've already outlined around language and the multiplicity of channels and voices. We settled on the applicability of the government communication policy and ensuring that we expanded the usage of the government communication excellence tool to evaluate the extent of compliance to the norms and standards and start to look at how we expand this to assess the qualitative aspects of communication practice across the 3 spheres of government. We analyzed the functions where the GCIS leads, facilitates, and coordinates to determine where we would focus the priority of our efforts, and we would then be a lot more clearer around where we lead, coordinate, and facilitate. The enablers at our disposal for the undertaking of this work, we are very firmly going to pursue the development of a research strategy that extends beyond just the conduct of a tracker survey, but that starts to evaluate the performance, the reach of our platforms and our campaigns. We had commenced a digital transformation journey through the adoption of a digital transformation strategy in the previous strategic plan cycle. And in the period 25 to 30, we want to advance this journey through the digitization of the GCIS environment, and the increased usage of technology to assist us with the impact of our work. One of the core strengths of the GCIS is the work around stakeholder engagement. And while we do not have a policy instrument, the work that we undertake is very strongly driven by relationship building and the use of stakeholders to amplify and extend the reach of our work. Any organization is dependent on its workforce, and we realize that it is a critical imperative that the staff within the GCIS are equipped with the relevant and adequate skills to ensure that they remain relevant in the execution of their duties, but that they are also responsive to the changes in the communication practice. The outputs that we will deliver are training, a variety of products and platforms, facilitating media engagement, issuing of a range of policy briefs and norms and standards as part of the government communication policy, a suite of audiovisual products through photography, video, and radio, conducting research on the impact of our work, and improving the performance of our social media platforms by ensuring an increased rate of engagement and interaction with the South African citizenry. When we mapped the chosen outcomes of the organization to the apex priorities of the medium-term development plan for the 2024 to 29 period, the outcomes 1, 2, and 3 align with a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And then the outcome on the transformation of the MAC sector is aligned to inclusive economic growth and job creation. To then unpack the details, Chairperson, of each of the outcomes, Outcome 1, which is our apex outcome around informed and empowered citizens, is anchored on institutionalizing an evidence-based approach in communication planning, monitoring, and evaluation. It depends on our ability to produce and timely disseminate accurate information in all official languages and to increase public education using development communication methods to empower citizens. How we will then measure our advancement towards these ambitions, Chairperson, we have defined 6 outcome indicators in support of Outcome 1. The first of which is to develop and implement a channel and platform strategy and to amplify this, the product and platform targeting each segment of the GSM through the implementation of the strategy. We want to increase the usage of development communication typologies, targeting a 50% increase specifically directed towards the rooted realists and city seekers, which are at the bottom sections of the lower end of the government segmentation model. The growth in diversification of language usage. As part of our evaluation of previous performance, we very clearly were able to identify a slant towards preference in communication in English. And this is a factor of both resources as well as what is at our disposal. But we also then acknowledge that if we were to be more prudent in our application of the government segmentation model, we would need to be more direct in the usage of a diversity of languages informed by the research that has shaped the development of the segmentation model across the 5 segments of the South African population. In that respect, we are targeting a 70% growth in the diversification of language usage. The reach of our campaigns, as well as our products and platforms amongst different segments of the population, will also be measured through periodic research that will be undertaken. And the targets for the reach of our products and platforms, as well as our campaigns, is 70% and 50% respectively. One of the issues we've grappled with as an organization is the level of awareness of ourselves as GCIS, but also the impact of our work and the extent to which the citizenry is satisfied with the level of government communication across all spheres. We are targeting a conservative 10% improvement in citizen satisfaction. And here, Chairperson, I would wish to clarify that the target of 10% is premised on the fact that we would be doing this for the very first time. Where previously the tracker survey factored in a question around this, we now want to expand that selection of questions to ensure that we are able to gain richer data around our performance as an organization, as well as the performance of our products, platforms, and our campaigns. Outcome 2 is around the improved functioning of the government communication system, striving to improve and strengthen our relations with the media, to enhance information sharing, and to foster improved transparency on decision-making by government. The key outcome here is the development of a national communications strategic framework and ensuring that this framework is implemented across all three spheres of government. The development of the NCSF is well institutionalized, but we have never been pronounced on how each province would develop an integrated communication strategic framework that aligns to the NCSF, and that is what we will pursue. We are also going to, at the midterm, conduct an analysis to monitor performance against the NCSF, and we are striving for a 60% adherence at the end by the midterm in implementation of communication strategies across all three spheres. We endeavor to roll out a campaign that repositions and brands the GCIS, and the campaign is titled GCIS for You, with a target of a 50% increase in awareness of the GCIS brand. Media buying is one of our primary services, and we are looking at increasing the discount that is negotiated on behalf of government from the baseline of 23% to 30%. And we would also target a 100% increase in the number of clients, with the baseline being an average of 20 clients per annum over the past 4 years. To strengthen our support of community media, we are wanting to diversify media platform sources that are used in government campaigns by reflecting 40% growth in the use of community media for key government campaigns that are specifically implemented by the GCIS. The improvement of alignment of communications to the government communication policy. We had in the previous MTSF for 2019 to 2024, we had rolled out the government compliance policy norms and standards to the national sphere of government. And as at the end of 2024, we were sitting at 75% compliance. Based on this experience, we are rolling out phase 2, which starts to evaluate the qualitative elements of communication practice by national departments. And we want to cascade the phase 1 to 50%, assessing the norms and standards at provincial and local government levels. Outcome 3, around transformation. We have retained the indicator on improved transformation of the sector, looking at measuring the 7 elements of the BBEE code. We have in the previous term established the Max Sector Council, and over the next 5 years, Chairperson, we would want to establish a standalone secretariat that complies with the Code of Good Practice. The secretariat is currently incubated within the GCIS, with the functions being performed by GCIS staff. We are a lot more pronounced on our intention to support the sustainability of the community media sector by working more closely with our entity, the MDDA. We will draft a community media advancement strategy and also finalize the processes towards the conclusion of the MDDA amendment bill. The fourth outcome, which focuses on how we are structured as an organization, endeavors to improve on systems, processes and technology adoption, to enable an efficient, agile and enabled organization, and to improve the usage of sound corporate governance with a diversified and appropriately skilled workforce. This would also extend to the oversight that we exercised over the entities that report to the Minister in the Presidency. For this particular outcome, Chairperson, we have 4 outcome indicators. The one that is looking at professionalization of government communication, we are targeting that all newly appointed 60% of all newly appointed communicators at all 3 spheres of government complete the Mastering the Art of Government Communication course. We will conduct an evaluation of the alignment and contribution by each of Brand SA and MDDA to national policy. As I had already mentioned, with the approval of the digital transformation strategy, we are now working towards a 90% digitalized GCIS environment by leveraging technology to improve the customer experience, collaboration and efficiencies, as well as decision making. And then with regards to the training and capacity development, with the core focus on the staff who are in branches 2 and 3, which are the core functions of the department, that 70% of these employees are upskilled in digital and communication skills. Moving to the annual performance plan, the indicators and targets that have been set, Chairperson, an increased audience reach with a 200 million target, excuse me. We want to improve the response rate to citizen queries. We are looking at piloting the use of technology on a platform and working towards a 50% response rate. Depending on the outcomes of that pilot, we would then roll this out to other platforms as part of our efforts to drive two-way engagement and improve the frequency of responses to questions and queries that are posed to the GCIS. We are looking at developing an integrated platform strategy, and the strategy will look at the relevance and applicability of our products and platforms, and possibly the introduction of new ones informed by research. Vuk'uzenzele is one of our flagship products, and in the previous cycle, Chairperson, we were measuring the number of editions of Vuk'uzenzele that were produced, as well as the number of editions of the paper that were printed. We are still retaining Vuk'uzenzele as an indicator, and we have two components. The one is, as part of our efforts to improve the usage of the other South African languages, we will now issue 4 editions of Vuk'uzenzele in an official language other than English. And with the newspaper being on digital platforms, we would like to increase the number of users of the digital platforms to 1.2 million users. The self-initiated opinion pieces is an old indicator that we are carrying through, and the target remains unchanged from the 24-25 APP. The development of a comm strategy will be finalized, and we will then roll out the government communication policy phase 2 indicators to assess the extent of compliance at national level with a target of 20% for year 1. The tracker will be rolled out through 2 surveys that will be undertaken to assess citizen satisfaction of government communication. Through the Communication Service Agency, we will implement 30% of the GCIS for You campaign. We have increased the number of hours of content to be broadcast per week on GOZA-TV. The number of people that we are targeting through central government campaigns that amplify the MTDP has been increased, and the development of a government communication policy will also be finalized in the current financial year. The advertising spend on community media, based on the baseline figure, we are targeting a 5% increase, specifically on those campaigns that are implemented by GCIS, as well as 5% on the campaigns that are facilitated through the media buying of clients that use the GCIS. The number of audiovisual products is an indicator that we are retaining. What we have done is that we have consolidated the figures and increased the target. Under policy development, the annual transformation report will continue to be developed as part of the work of the MAC Sector Council, supported by the Secretariat. And we will also issue 3 policy assessment reports on the alignment and support by the entities to government policies and priorities. Chairperson, under the branch Intergovernmental Coordination and Stakeholder Management, there are a range of new indicators that have been shaped both by the research findings, the situational analysis, but also learning of the advice that was provided by the Portfolio Committee through the oversight visits undertaken to the Eastern Cape and to Gauteng. The new indicators are around public education and awareness initiatives, as well as the community media sustainability support initiatives and the localized content products that target rooted realists that are disseminated in an official provincial languages. In the previous financial year, we piloted the development of an annual integrated government communication plan that conglomerates communication ambitions across all 3 spheres, and this will be continued in the 25-26 financial year. What we would do in addition to this plan, Chairperson, is to conduct and produce 4 progress reports on the implementation of the IGCP. And the IGCP is an annual implementation plan of the 5-year NCSF. The alignment of communication projects as well as development of cluster communication programs is well institutionalized, and both these indicators are a continuation from the previous period. As mentioned by the Deputy Minister, we did receive an allocation for our support of the G20 as the GCIS, and utilizing this funding, we have defined an indicator to conduct 9 outreach programs that would be undertaken to profile and communicate South Africa's chairing of the G20. We will also develop and approve and engage a stakeholder engagement strategy. Training is identified as one of the outputs that we have successfully delivered upon over the last 2 planning cycles. As part of improving our service offering, we have separated the training output indicator into 2. Firstly, we are targeting 25 request-driven communication training interventions, and the figure of 25 is based on historical data on the average number that we have received over the previous strategic plan term. But what we are also then going to start measuring quite intentionally is the number of proactive communication training opportunities that would be informed by an annual training plan that the GCIS would develop at the beginning of every financial year. And that is based on our interaction through the fora such as your Government Communication Forum, your Internal Communicators Forum, and the identification of skills gaps based on the data that we glean through the Government Communication Excellence Tool. For media engagement, the cabinet media briefings as well as the media engagements that we support on the MTGP are being carried through into this new cycle, Chairperson. And we are introducing 2 new ambitious indicators that are measuring our ability to manage government's reputation, but also to improve a rapid response mechanism, with targets being set for 2-hour turnaround time, 6-hour turnaround time over the financial year. In corporate services, the indicators for training remain unchanged with just a revision of the targets. The target for the percentage of our operational budget that we spend on designated locations is also being continued. Under the Government Information Technology Office, we have framed a new indicator that is measuring ICT solutions that are scoped or deployed as part of our digital transformation journey and to improve our communication responsiveness and interaction. I will then hand over, Chairperson, to the CFO. In summary, the strat plan consists of 18 outcome indicators. Of that 18, 14 are new, with 4 having been either carried through or refined. The APP consists of 41 indicators, of which 26 are entirely new, 7 have been retained, and 8 have been refined. The core focus over the period, Chairperson, will be on language usage, on intensifying an evidence-based communication approach, on increasing 2-way communication with an enhanced communication rate, and measuring the reach and impact of the campaigns that were outlined by the Deputy Minister. Thank you, CFO.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, DM in the Presidency, and colleagues on the platform. I will take you through the financial allocations for the GCIS. For the 2025 MTEF period, we are allocated 2.4 billion rands, which is made up of 820.2 million for 25-26, which is a current year, 805.7 million for 2026-2027 financial year, and 842.1 million for the 2027-2028 financial year. Included in these allocation, Chairperson, we have Brand SA at 229.0 million on the 25-26 financial year, and then we have 40.2 million for Brand SA in the current for MDDA in the current financial year. Then in 2026-2027, Brand SA is allocated 219.4 million, while MDDA is allocated 42.1 million. And then in 2027-2028, Brand SA is allocated 229 million, while MDDA is allocated 44 million. Then in terms of the current year's allocation, Program 1 is allocated 210.5 million, which is made up of 209 million on current payments, 306,000 on transfers and subsidies, and 1 million on the capital assets. In the outer years, Program 1 is allocated 217.9 million in 2026-2027 financial year and 227.7 million in 2027-2028. In Program 2 in the current year, the allocation is sitting at 451.1 million, which is made up of 179.9 million in current payments, 269.3 million in the transfers and subsidies, and 1.9 million in the capital assets. In the outer years, Program 2 is allocated 429 million in 2026-2027 financial year and 448 million in the 2027-2028 financial year. And then in Program 3, in the current year, the allocation is 158.5 million, which is made up of 155.4 million on current payments, 1 million on transfers and subsidies, and 2 million on the capital assets. Then in the outer years, Program 3 is allocated 158.7 million in 2026-2027 financial year and 166.3 million in the 2027-2028 financial year. Chairperson and members, included in the allocation for the current financial year, we have a budget for the G20. For GCIS, the allocation is 27.6 million, and Brand SA is allocated 21.3 million. Then looking in terms of the budget allocation analysis, for the current year, our operational budget is sitting at 544.4 million, which is made up of compensation of employees to the value of 311 million, goods and services to the value of 233.4 million, while we also have the 20 million for communication campaigns and the 27.6 million for the G20 under GCIS. And then on capital budget, we are allocated 5 million, which is a 1% of the total allocation. This is also meant to ensure that we improve the service delivery as well as also upgrade in terms of our capital equipment. And then on transfers and subsidies, our allocation is 270.7 million, which is made up of 40.2 million for MDDA and 229 million for Brand SA. Included in the Brand SA allocation is a 21.3 million, which is meant for the G20 presidency, and the remaining balance on the transfers and subsidies is made up of 1.3 million for households, which is the money we pay for employees who leave the service for the leave gratuities, and also we have SABC TV licenses that we pay on an annual basis, which is costed at 46,000. Thank you, Chairperson. And also for the current year, we have also identified 7 key strategic risks which we are managing on an ongoing basis. We have 4 risks under the empowered and informed citizenry, of which we have also have mitigation plans to ensure that they don't come into existence. Then under the well-functioning government systems, we have identified the reputational risk, which we are also managing together with the
CFO,
Brand SA. Thank you, Chair.
CFO, the risks, you are glossing over them, and I know that we want you to speak to those risks and your mitigation measures. Thanks.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry. I was saying we have identified 7 strategic risks which may hinder us from attaining what we want to achieve. Under the informed and empowered citizenry, we have identified 4 risks, which is the limited reach of the GCIS managed platforms and campaigns, the incorrect usage of government corporate identity, the mis- and disinformation, as well as also the inability to meet the government advertising spend, which is set at 30% to community media. So as part of the risk mitigation plans that we have, we are developing a platform and digital strategy that was alluded on earlier on, and we have also appointed we are appointing a panel of audiovisual to assist us in terms of ensuring that our messages reach all the platforms in the right content at the right quantity and so forth. And also we are producing tracker research, which assist us to measure and ascertain in terms of the reach to all the platforms and to the communities, and also to ensure that we lure the citizens to our platforms. And we also produce a report on the website statistics as well as social media statistics on all the GCIS managed digital platforms, whereby we measure the impressions, the views, as well as the engagement. Then under the incorrect usage of the corporate identity, we have an in-house marketing unit, which assists us with developing a standardized corporate identity for government departments. And also as part of this, we are developing and obtaining a MANCO approval for all the roadshow plans, whereby the marketing unit will go to all the provinces to market in terms of what kind the corporate identity of government and how it must be used. And also we are rolling out the roadshow plan on educating the clients on the correct usage of the government corporate identity. These are done virtually, and also we have physical sessions whereby we engage with all government departments, both at national as well as at provincial level. And also on misinformation and disinformation, we will develop a schedule of media interviews whereby we also inform these media houses for all our political as well as our administrative leaders. And also we monitor and implement the media schedules on an ongoing basis. We also coordinate partnerships on the mis and disinformation, as well as also we conduct feasibility studies, as well as we appoint service providers to assist us with the development of the content hub. On this one, Chairperson is going to be developed on a phase approach, and is part of our digital migration plan. And then with regards to the inability to meet the government spending on community media, we are developing a media policy which will assist us and ensure that all government departments as well as state-owned entities, they support the community media to ensure their sustainability. And also we are increasing the percentage of advertising support to the community media through the GCIS campaigns as well as also the media campaigns. Can you go to the next one, Sadia? Then under the well-functioning government communication system, we have identified one risk, which is a reputational risk due to lack of coherence in the messaging of the government messages. As also on this one, we have risk mitigation, which speaks to the key messages being developed by GCIS and cascaded to all the communicators and accounting officers in the public service. We also conduct induction of the entrance into the system. All communicators that come into the system, we run that induction. And we also have trainings for the political principals in terms of how they should deal with the media. We also conduct capacity building for all communicators and executives, whereby we engage them and also show them the ropes of dealing with the communication in the public space. And we also strengthen relations with the communication stakeholders, including the media houses, SANEF, Press Club, and so forth. And we also have a circulation which is called Saturday poster, whereby we indicate on that poster we reflect on issues of a specific day. So this is done on a daily basis, Chairperson and members. We also provide progress on the implementation of the integrated government communication plan. So on an annual basis, Chairperson, we do have a government communication plan that we develop, and also at a cluster level, each cluster has its own communication plan, whereby we monitor on an ongoing basis. And also as part of the GSET tool, we report in terms of how government departments are communicating, the platforms they use, and how they comply to the government communication policy, which is part of this implementation of the integrated government communication plan. And then under the improved governance and service excellence, we identified two key risks, which is the misalignment between operational model with the departmental strategy, And this one, Chairperson, it speaks to the changing communication environment and also how we as a department are geared up to ensure that we are aligned to the developments in the communication space and also ensure that we are operating in line with what the industry is moving. As part of the mitigation plans for this risk, we are appointing a GTEC to assist us with the development of the operating model. The submission has already been tabled at MANCO to ensure that all the MANCO members, they buy into the idea and approach in terms of to ensure that as GCIS will remain agile and as well as relevant. We are also benchmarking an ideal comms agency ops model to ensure that as GCIS will remain relevant and also we remain alive to the changing environment. And we are also developing an operating model for GCIS, which is informed by the benchmarking, the economic feasibility, as well as also the proposed new organizational designation. We are alive to the fact that, Chairperson, the operating model might change in terms of how we operate and also how our organizational structure is currently. So we are also looking forward to ensuring that we are aligned with what the model is saying we should approach communication. And also we are prioritizing the filling of the organizational development post as it is critical in terms of ensuring that we have an organizational structure which is fit for purpose. And lastly, we have identified a risk which speaks to the failure to implement the digital transformation initiative. For this risk, Chairperson, we are implementing our IMT digital transformation strategy. And also as part of that strategy, we have identified projects that needs to be implemented, which is part of the IMT project master plan. We also have an IT steering committee which sits on a quarterly basis to monitor the implementation of this digital transformation strategy. And also we are seeking to provide training and empowerment of the staff to improve our digital capability. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CFO. I'm not sure, DM, if you want to introduce the MDDA, but I think you would have covered it in your introductory remarks. In which case, if I'm correct, can I invite Professor Matebula? Chairperson, you are welcomed as always. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chair. I think the DM has made comprehensive comments, and to not waste time, I'll just ask the CEO to do
Thank you very much, Chair. I have been granted permission now to present. If you'll just allow for me to have the screen on. Honorable Chairperson of the committee, Memufumahadi Kusela Digo, honorable members of the committee, the Deputy Minister, the Chairperson of the MDDA board, leaders on the platforms of public entities and other organizations, and colleagues, Khozo. I'll be taking you through the MDDA strategic plan for 2025 to 2030, as well as our annual performance plan for 2025 and 2026. I will be working with the CFO. I will breeze through this, but I do want to highlight that there has not been a change much in the overall operational environment of the MDDA. The mandate of the agency largely anchored on Section 16 of the Constitution that everyone has a right to freedom of expression, and Section 32 that everyone has a right to access information. And out of this, the mandate of the MDDA, which emanates from the MDDA Act and enabled by the ECA Act, and I think it's important to mention that because we draw majority of our funding from the universal access levy, which is empowered through the ECA. Safe to say that while there are no changes in the visions, mission, and the values of the MDDA, it is important to highlight that the agency remains committed to ensuring that there's accessible, developmental, diversified, and a sustainable community and small commercial media within the country. I will spend just a few minutes on this slide looking at the 7 objectives which are born out of the MDDA's mandate. I will start with the one on encourage the channeling of resources to community and small commercial media sectors. This has been important in ensuring that the agency is able to advocate for resources, including advertising, to go into community media. Much of the work in this area is done through very strategic key stakeholder engagements with advertisers and as well as with other public entities to ensure that they include community media in their mix. One of the engagements that we will be having will focus specifically on the narratives around the value that community media is able to bring in terms of informing communities and granting them access to information. Another one is encouraging the development of human resources and training capacity building within the media industry, especially among historically disadvantaged groups. This will be indicated or clearly shown when we look at some of the targets that we've set out for the 5-year period, and that we've already started with implementing, where skills and capacity building programs are already underway and have been implemented. I also want to indicate that the agency has also been focusing on raising public awareness regarding media development and diversity issues. The Deputy Minister earlier on spoke about a collaborative project that the MDDA and GCIS would be working on, which would look at the media index, giving us a sense of which other areas in the country would still need interventions in ensuring that the communities in those areas have access to information through their own community media platforms. And so our programs in this area will also be targeted in those communities that still have to place effort in building and creating their own media platforms. The agency continues to promote media development and diversity by providing support primarily to community and small commercial media projects. Here, Honorable Chair, I would like to highlight that in the current financial year, the MDDA will be handing over about 9 state-of-the-art studios. And for that, I'll just like to highlight a few, one being 1KZN, which broadcasts out of KwaZulu-Natal. This is one of the 5 community television broadcasters that are in the country where the MDDA has provided support for studio equipment as well as support specifically for content development and supporting with the signal distribution for the community TV stations. Another one is Muleji FM in Limpopo. The station started off with just a small studio space and has now grown to have facilities that are able to provide for broadcasting content and also growth in terms of skills development within the radio station. They've got outside broadcast equipment that enables them to go to various communities in their broadcast area across Limpopo to be able to broadcast and reach those communities. Lastly, I will highlight Tshwane FM. I think one of the vibrant projects that the MDDA has supported. The station has also looked at a hybrid approach in addition to the broadcast on FM, in that they have offerings that are natively online in the form of podcast, and this they've launched through their Tshwane FM Extra. And through the support of the MDDA, they were also able to build their outside broadcast facilities and unit. This enables for them to be able to carry out their broadcasting within the community and also to cover some other events. Chair, those are just some of the 7 key objectives I would like to highlight in the presentation. I'll then get into the strategic plan for 2025 to 2025-26 to 2029-2030. Chair, I will focus on the key outcomes that are expected or that the agency has set for itself: a sustainable community and small commercial media sector led by a future-forward agency by the 2029-2030 financial year. And we are in the first year of implementation, and I'm happy to say that we have already started with some of these programs to ensure that we accelerate support for community and small commercial media in enabling them to become sustainable in the work that they carry out, in ensuring that communities are able to access credible information and news timelessly. And for us to be able to ensure that there's this sustainability within the sector, the MDDA is looking to train or capacitate community media practitioners. The base target that we are looking at was 250. In the next coming years, the agency is looking at capacitating 200 community media practitioners. Chair and members on the platform, I do want to say that the agency does have a stretch target, and we should be able to meet the target of the 200 individuals that we seek to train within the community media space. The MDDA, in the January rounds of board meetings, the management presented a digital transformation strategy or digitalization of the community media sector, which then introduced a more strategic approach, which is integrated to some of the programs that we run and the expected outcomes for the sector, which the board approved, and we are already implementing against that. And what we are looking to do here is to ensure that we digitally transform 100 community media practitioners, community media projects across the country. We do understand that this number is far shorter than the total number of the existing community media projects that exist in the country, both in broadcast for radio and television, as well as the community media publishers. The agency continues to have meaningful stakeholder engagements to ensure that we are able to cover every community radio station and TV stations across the country and ensure that they are digitalized. We're also looking at ensuring that we provide the skills required for the digitalization of the sector. And here we will implement 100% of the training for the projects that we would be working with in the reporting period. We've also said that there's a need to ensure that content that is generated within the community media space is factual, it's correct, and it's timelessly. And we've also recognized that it is important for the sector to share information. Under the guidance of the board, the agency has committed to developing a digital content hub, which will then be supported by the community-based journalists who would be trained to be able to share content at a peer level on one platform, enabling everyone to have access to some of the stories that could be of interest and of importance in other areas. This project will be very key as we prepare to get into the local government elections, and the agency will be able to, has already put measures in place to fund the development of this hub and related training. And we are in discussions with partners who would assist in ensuring that this project is kicked off before the start of the local government elections anticipated for 2026. The MDDA is also looking to focus on areas of program production or funding under program production. And here would be funding for thematic areas. While this is one of the new targets that the agency is focusing on, it is important in that it opens up another opportunity for the MDDA to seek funding opportunities and partners who can provide training and related content development programs to the sector, including areas of discussions like the G20 and how community media would cover those. GCIS has indicated on a partnership and how we would be looking at incorporating community media to ensure that they are able to deliver the message around the G20 to the various communities. Again, we've also looked at the need for ethics and dealing with issues around disinformation within the community media sector. I think in the age and time that we are in, where technology and sharing information often unverified it has become key to ensure that the community media practitioners are able to deliver content and information that is credible. And to achieve this, the MDDA will be running trainings. Additionally, the board of the agency has encouraged the MDDA management to partner with the Press Council to ensure that we are able to encourage all community media publishers to be members of the Press Council, and that the broadcasters essentially are aligned to the broadcasting complaints commissions, or those that are subscribed to the ICASA Council are. And so to bridge the gaps and bring all of this, the MDDA will then be providing this training. Particularly in the build-up to the local government elections, we have very specific programs that will focus on ethics and disinformation relating to elections. And those then relate in the main on capacitating community media in credible and diverse news and information that they are disseminating. Moving to an outcome of a sustainable and capable MDDA. The MDDA largely receives funding through the Universal Access Levy, which is 0.2% of revenue that is generated by the commercial broadcasters. And this comes in the main from advertising, and therefore is very subjective to, or is subject to, economic conditions. For us to be able to build a sustainable MDDA, there is a need for the agency to be able to develop its own funding strategy and fundraising strategy to support the work and initiatives of the mandate of the MDDA. And in the current period, 2025-2029, the MDDA is focusing on building these alternative funding resources to ensure that there is sustainability. In the area where the 12 strategic risks were identified, and the MDDA management team reports to the board on these quarterly through the Audit and Risk Committee, which I would say very robust, is that there's been recognition that there's a need to drive a high performance team within the agency and to ensure that we are meeting the targets, as well as the overall mandate of the agency, that we need to invest in the staff or the employees of the agency. And the agency is already in, or projects are afoot to ensure that we are improving that. But also because of the way in which the agency is funded, key stakeholder engagements, not just with the current funders through the Universal Access Levy, but also other businesses that are able to support the freedom of expression, but also more specifically, the need for media development and diversity within the country. We are able to align with those. As such, the MDDA has already developed a communications and stakeholder engagement strategy and related policies to ensure that our approach in these are very strategic. And we are looking at, or have already worked towards, an unqualified audit opinion. The board of the MDDA with the Audit and Risk Committee has been very robust in ensuring that management addresses some of the concerns that the AGSA has raised, and ensuring that there's improvement in our in controls within the environment. And with the work that the team, as well as the support from the Audit and Risk Committee and the board, there has been some improvement. The agency was also able to address and deal with the findings that the AGSA had raised. From a risk maturity level, the agency is presently at level 3. We are targeting a more advanced level, which would be robust in the 5-year period. And this would largely be based on how we respond to some of the challenges or risks that would emerge of those that we've identified, and also how we address them over time. Moving to the annual performance plan for the current financial year, 2025-2026, Chair, under Program 1, Governance and Administration, the agency is targeting an unqualified audit opinion with no significant findings, as indicated, we had an improvement plan that was that has already been implemented, was reviewed by the internal audit team. We are presently under the AGSAs on site doing the audits, and we are confident with the work that the management has done. And again, the support from the board as well as the audit and risk committee to change course and ensure that the entity receives an unqualified audit opinion. Chair, the risks that have emerged are relating to funding for the community media sector. I think more specifically for the print sector, where the memorandum of agreement that had existed up to about 2005 had lapsed with the publishers, and therefore the MDDA has not received any funding from the commercial publishers. This has meant that the agency now needs to actively seek opportunities to get funds and run programs in partnerships with independent organizations to provide meaningful support for the community media broadcast, brother publishers. And this is the work that we have done. And in this area, Chair, I do then want to highlight that the MDDA, out of the publications that are applying for funding, and at this present moment, we are estimating, or based on the figures provided by the AIP, the Black Media Owners Association, and ACM, that there's over 300 publications in the country. The MDDA is only able to support 6 of these publications. What the MDDA supports in the publications that receive funding is capital expenditure, which would include computers, laptops, printers, cameras, and furniture, but also an investment towards ensuring that the entities or the publishers are able to print and distribute their publications in the period when they are funded. The agency also supports these institutions with content production stipends, which then do make a difference for the community media journalists that are doing the work there. Chair, we do understand that 6 publications out of over 300 is a limited number. Thus, the need for us to ensure that our efforts to raise funds and actively seek partners to make a meaningful contribution here is emphasized. Additionally, just in addition to supporting these 6 publications, the MDDA supports the sector by covering their costs of the ABC certification or the Audit Bureau of Circulation's costs. While this provides an opportunity for the sector to have some credibility and be able to secure funding opportunity, or rather advertising opportunities, it also gives an indication of verified data so that we know how many publications are currently in print and are in circulation. Work has already started in this area, and a report from the ABC is expected at the end of August, and we would be able to share some highlights of that report based on the information that we'll be receiving. Additionally, still on the publishers, the MDDA board has encouraged management to explore other ways in which we can make meaningful and more sustainable support for the community media sector, and continue engaging with the Press Council. And the purpose here is to ensure that there is promotion of ethical journalism for the community media sector, but also build credibility for that sector in the information that they have. And engagements continue here. And Chair, I'm hoping that when we report at the end of, when we bring our Q1 report, we will be able to indicate that the agreement with the Press Council has been finalized, and this is the level of support we are able to provide. Chair, more specifically then on the broadcast sector, the MDDA is able to support 22 projects. Again, this is based on the limited resources that the agency presently has. I did speak about the 9 state-of-the-art studios that we are going to be handing over in the current financial year. These 22 projects are new projects which started, or the disbursement started from April this financial year. And what is covered in terms of the support here is content production, and this would include the covering of stipends, salaries, telecommunications like data or Wi-Fi connectivities, including local travel. We also have a big capital investment, which would be the state-of-the-art studios, but that would also include the outside broadcast equipment and also UPSs or power-related sources. We also support computers, laptops, and printers. But I think also most importantly is that the agency is also able to support the broadcasters that do have, in addition to their class license and ECNS license to self-transmit, we are able to provide funding for them to be able to start and establish that self-transmission, which limits their Centec fees. But for some of the broadcasters, they apply for funding for their transmission fees. There is an existing memorandum of agreement between the MDDA and Centec to be able to support those 22 broadcasters that we will be funding in 2025-2026 with their signal distribution costs. Training and capacity buildings are also very key. I want to highlight in this area that we provide sales and marketing training, finance training, but also we assist the beneficiaries with training to understand governance and ensure that they are compliant with the conditions that they would have agreed on when we enter into contract with them. Chair, I've spoken about the digital strategy, which is now at the implementation phase, having been approved by the board. We are saying we are targeting 20 projects in the current financial year. This is linked to the resources presently available, and we are hoping that we will be able to overachieve in this target, supporting all of the community media broadcasters, both radio, TV, as well as the publishers that we have and are funding with the digitalization of their media projects. And here, Chair, what is key is to say that the MDDA has put funds aside to ensure there's an integrated digitalization project that's rolled out. And we've partnered with Centec to be able to use one platform where one is able to access all community radio stations. That is what we are aspiring for, and all community TV stations on the one area. And each station would have their own brand and brand personality, but within one channel and one platform. So that will also provide opportunities for alternative revenue outside of just the advertising that is presently what the sector relies on in the main. I've spent a lot of time on the grant and seed funding, and this is essentially just breaking down the targets quarterly. And Chair, I do want to say that the agency's focused, while the targets are in quantum, is really much on the outcomes and the impact that the interventions are providing within the sector. And this is why the program of monitoring and evaluation is very important. We are targeting to produce one annual evaluation report. And here our approach in our monitoring and evaluation framework is one that's focusing on the impact of the projects or the interventions that the agency has provided, and also lessons that are learned to enable the board to realize what impact from the projects that they approved for funding, what achievements we've been able to make, and the areas of improvement that exists. We also are looking at monitoring and evaluating the projects that do receive funding. And so the number of 56 is linked against the projects that are funded by the MDDA in the current financial year. And that would be the case for the rest of the 5 years in which we are implementing. Moving to Program 3 under partnerships, public awareness, and advocacy. Chair, in this area, I wish to indicate that we are looking to have 8 stakeholder engagements in the 2025-2026 financial year. I am happy to say that the projects in this area have already started. These stakeholder engagements are informed by a communications and stakeholder engagement strategy, which was approved by the board. We started with our key stakeholder engagements in the Northwest, wherein we invited community media practitioners, as well as representatives and government officials within those provinces who deal in the main with communications and communications budgets. And the purpose here is essentially changing the narrative around community media and ensuring that the community media sector also understands what is expected to be able to benefit, for example, from government advertising offered through provincial departments, but also additionally through GCIS. And GCIS has been a great partner in implementing these. We've also had another stakeholder engagement in Mpumalanga. The next one will be in the Western Cape. So out of these 8, these stakeholder engagements are cut across the country and focus on key strategic areas and building relationships, not just with the sector, but partners who would be able to help in building sustainability within the sector. Chair, earlier on, I spoke about the objective of raising awareness and therefore thought leadership and media engagement on the position of the MDDA and its brand remains key, and also provides an opportunity for us to reach the chief marketing officers, decision makers who are able to unlock funding, which will support the initiatives of the MDDA. And for this, we are targeting 20 of these strategic thought leadership and media engagements. We are looking at having one engagement later on in the month of July, where we are specifically focusing on the advertisers or the advertising sector, and we are inviting the community media managers and operators so that we leave there having the tools that are practical to enable for us to advertise community media more meaningfully, but also from the projects level. The MDDA is presently reviewing and will be presenting a fundraising strategy to the board of the MDDA. And this will inform the approach in our fundraising initiatives. While we are looking to submit, or while we are reporting against 4 targets of fundraising proposals that will be submitted, the agency is looking to achieve or to be able to use this year as the baseline of the amount of money the agency is able to bring in through fundraising initiatives. Understanding that we have not performed in this area, the current financial year will give us an indication of what is possible within the market, but also able to deliver. As such, there will be an adjustment from the quantum number of just the proposals to more the number or the amount that the agency seeks to raise through funding in the 2025-2026 financial year. Safe to say, Chair, we have already submitted more than 4 fundraising funding proposals, and some of those are at the stage where we should be able to deliver on programs, one being training programs on sales and marketing for community media, both the broadcasters as well as the publishers, with another one looking at business skills or finance for community media, one of the key areas that the agency has identified as important in the capacity building initiatives and programs that we need to run. Chair, I will then move to program 4, which is sector development and outreach. In the current financial year, the agency is looking to have 8 training programs. The areas of training that we are looking to focus, Chair, include digital media, design, marketing and management, content creation, looking also at editing skills, podcasting, technical skills, finance management, strategic governance for the various community media publishers. And here, Chair, while the number of trainings themselves are only 18, this training is implemented across the country where we have resources available. The training is done in person, but we also do have a hybrid approach where some of our training are part online and also in person to be able to reach as many of the community media practitioners as we need to. And this has been key because in the sustainability report that was published in 2024 by the MDDA, a need to professionalize the sector and provide interventions in capacity building and the right skills to enable the sector to thrive were identified, and there has been focus here for the MDDA to be able to carry out. In the area of media and information literacy initiatives, here we often partner with other entities, including some of the community media projects that we work with, including broadcasters and publishers. In the most recent one, we had worked with Radio Zibonele in the Western Cape with Dizindaba, where we were able to engage communities on digital skills and them understanding digital literacy information that would be important for them. We have run some programs in partnership with the Film and Publications Board. Chair, we have a conservative target in accredited training of only one training program that is accredited. This is in addition to the other training that we will provide. The reason we are conservative in this target is that the cost of delivering accredited training is much higher, and the agency is presently able to deliver just the one training. However, Chair, we have signed a memorandum of agreement with MIC CETA and are at the stage where we are developing the implementation plan, which will provide and open up more opportunities for us to be able to provide more training that is accredited, which will not only just upskill the community media practitioners, but also open opportunities for them to continue in their journey of skills development and growth. Another area of focus is a targeted skill set, including in digital skills and ethics and dealing with issues of disinformation. In the current financial year, we will be delivering the one training, but as indicated, Chair, we do have a more specific training that will focus on the coverage of the local government elections and empowering community media journalists to be able to cover the elections in an efficient way, for a want of a better word. Chair, I'll move to program 5, which deals in the main with research and innovation. Here, the MDDA is looking to produce in the 2025-26 financial year 2 research reports. One, the Deputy Minister spoke about, which is this research report that would look at the media index in the country, looking at what is the media diversity level in the country from a geographic point of view, but also from an access point of view in terms of language and plurality. What another area of research that we have recognized, which also is punctuated in the sustainability report that the agency published last year, is on audience measurements and data relating to audiences of community media. As indicated earlier on, we have already partnered with the ABC to start with the circulation and distribution figures for community media. And we are in continuous engagements to ensure that for the broadcasters with the BRC, that the sample size is representative of the community media sector, while there have been limitations there in that the BRC has not released any data in the past year. We are hoping that there will be some progress that's made from the BRC, which is sector-wide point of view, but also more directly focusing on community media. I will now hand over to the CFO, who will take us through the financials. Ms. Baji.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning to everyone on the platform. The agency is set to make 140 million in revenue over the medium term. 111 will be in the 2025-2026 financial year, 113 million in the 2026-2027, and 116 in the outer year. 57% of our revenue is derived from the use of levy from broadcast broadcast funders, 38% from government grants, and 5% from interest that we receive from the CPT account through the Reserve Bank. We are anticipating to receive 65 million of the USAF levy in the 2025-2026 financial year. 65, so it's 65 throughout the years. The reason why there's no escalation in this area is because of the economic climate that the country is faced with. So we are not anticipating to get any increases in the funds that we receive through broadcast funders. With regards to the funds that we receive from government allocation, 41 million is anticipated to be received in the 2025-2026 financial year, 43 million in the 2026-2027, and 45 million in the outer year. With regard to expenditure, we are anticipating to spend 39 million on compensation of employees, and that amounts to 132 million over the medium term, with 41 for 2025-2026, and then 44 million projected for 2026-2027, and 46 million for the outer year. With regards to goods and services, we are anticipating to spend 19% of our budget on goods and services, which is 65 million over the medium term, 21 million in the 2025-2026 financial year, 22 million in the 2026-2027 financial year, and 23 million in the outer year. And then 42% of our budget is expected to be spent on transfers and subsidies to grant beneficiaries. This is what we transfer to beneficiaries, as well as all other related expenditures such as training, research, and so forth. So the total that we are anticipating to spend of the budget is 144 million, 49 million in the 2025-2026 financial year, 48 in the 2026-2027, and 47 million in the outer year. I do need the committee to note that we are still not getting any funding for the print sector. So the funds that we're going to spend on transfers and subsidies for the print sector will be coming from the interest that we receive from short-term deposits. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CFO, CEO, and Chairperson for that presentation. I allowed you to go on because I suppose this is quite important, speaking to your plans over the next 5 years. But with that being said, we don't have a lot of time and we still have one more item on the agenda. So I'm going to invite members for any questions, comments that they've got on the two presentations, and also just to request the Secretariat to note the apology of Honorable Elisha. Can I take hands for the GCIS and the MDD presentations? Colleagues, are you still in the meeting, honorable members? I'm not seeing any hands on the GCIS and the MDDA presentations. Thank you. I was about to assume that the weather in Cape Town has dealt with the members. I'll take Honorable Vilakazi first, followed by Honorable Shongwe. We will come back if we have any other hands after that. Honorable Vilakazi, you may take the platform.
Sorry, Chair, just putting my questions together. Can you please start with the Honorable Shongwe if he's ready?
Thank you. Honorable Shongwe. Honorable Shongwe, ready?
I'm here, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right, Chair. My question is mostly on MDDA, Chair. I'll come back for you, GCIS, so I'll just prepare something. Chair, ngiyabulisa wonke umuntu okhona to you, Chair, naba colleagues akithi members, some honorable members, deputy ministers. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi uminister uthe ngena online while bamuphe i-leave. Siyabonga kakhulu. Chair, ikulokho nje MDDA, my question is on transparency. Can the agency provide metrics on the impact of its funded project? And in terms of audience reach, sustainability, and job creation, we've asked this question, Chair, before, but we've never got a clear answer on it. So I'd like to be a bit specific on this one. And then, what innovations is the MDDA supporting to ensure community media survives in the age of digital streaming and AI-generated content? My last question, Chair, on MDDA would be, how is the MDDA ensuring equitable funding and technical support for grassroots and community media in historically disadvantaged areas, especially in the digital shift of online platforms? Thank you, Chair. Can I ask into GCIS after, Chair? I'm just finalizing some things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Vilakazi, are you ready? Okay, maybe while Honorable Vilakazi is still busy, one or two questions on my part, and I suppose like everybody else, there's a lot to go through, so I may need to come back. I'm keen to find out about the communication strategy framework, which you say was recently adopted by Cabinet. Can you just take us through what that looks like in a nutshell, but also what, as Parliament, we should be looking for as indicators of its success? Because I see that you obviously base a lot of what you're going to be doing over the next 5 years on that framework. Your centralized media buying targets, you speak about increasing by 100%, which sounds very impressive until you realize that you're increasing from 20 to 40. Now, this is a huge problem as I understand it, and I want to understand why the GCIS's ambition is that over the next 5 years, you'll only have 20 more government entities buying through GCIS. What is the problem there, and what are you intending to do about it? You also spoke about an increase in targets on the MAC sector transformation report. What are the baselines on that? Because the 5 to 7% that you speak about seems very moderate. On G20 communication, you indicated that you had a budget just above 20 million rand for the current year. We are in July in 5 days, meaning that we are more than halfway through the G20 process. Now, this has been raised in a number of platforms to say that, yes, we see the banners in the airports, in all high LSM areas. In your input, you spoke about outreach programs, and I'm wondering, I really want your opinion on whether you think that South Africans are part of the G20 through the initiatives that you have implemented. And if you were to go anywhere, South Africans know the discussions that are taking place in the G20, how those discussions affect them, what they should be doing, how they can contribute if they needed to. So just your assessment in terms of how you have done in that regard. Around Goza TV, how much money is allocated to this thing? And then secondly, what has been the return on investment to date, and how are you measuring it on Goza TV? I noticed that over the MTF, you'll be transferring obviously a significant amount of money to Brand SA. However, I'm not seeing Brand SA and their mandate as part of your priority outcomes. So how are you measuring what is happening with Brand SA if you don't seem to recognize their role within the department's priorities, which you don't do with MDDA? Also to the GCIS, you are spending about 233 million rand, less give or take 40 million rand on goods and services. Can you give us a high-level breakdown of what that goods and services amount of 190 million odd or so is utilized for? And then finally, on misinformation and disinformation, We have asked you this question before, and I think there was an expectation on our part that we would see a greater institutional response to issues of misinformation and disinformation. Neither the strat plan or the annual plan speaks to that. So I just want to be sure, have you undertaken any global benchmarks to understand how other countries are dealing with misinformation and disinformation? Secondly, have you looked at the legislative environment, including amongst others the Cybersecurity Act and any other relevant act, to see what role, if any, the GCIS has to play? And then finally, how then you believe as South Africa, we're capacitating ourselves to deal with misinformation and disinformation. Then on the media spend, I looked at your risk mitigation factors, which I'm not quite sure what it said now. I didn't write it down, but this is the media spend on community media. You said that you would obviously want to increase spend on community media, but your risk mitigation factor has got nothing to do with the challenges that are hindering you from spending more with community media, which is one, the fact that government departments are not buying from you. Secondly, the fact that most of these media organizations are not compliant. Now, you went off and you had some other explanation for how you would mitigate that risk. If you could just comment on that. And then finally, you have said that as part of your risk mitigation measures will be the circulation of key messages. Can you speak to us about how effective you consider those key messages to be? I may come back on MDDA if my questions on MDDA are not answered. Honorable Vilakazi, I'm coming to you, and then I recognize Honorable Subrathi.
I'm ready, Chair. Thank you very much for your indulgence. I'd like to start with the MDDA, if I may. But firstly, good morning to yourself, Chair, the DM, and colleagues on the call. To the MDDA first, your strategic plan targets over 500 media outlets to be digitally transformed by 2029. Yet the APP commits only to 20. So how does the MDDA plan to bridge this massive gap in the remaining years? And is your current budget sufficient for this scale of transformation? Number two, your APP allocates only one ethics training session and 4 media literacy initiatives across the country. Given the rise in misinformation and community media's critical role, is this intervention sufficient? What other ways are possible to increase impact? For example, online training. You plan to support 22 community broadcast grants and 20 digital support projects. How do you evaluate the impact of these grants beyond just mere disbursement? Is there a mechanism to assess sustainability, content quality, or audience reach? Fourth, the strategic plan refers to a commitment to transformation, but the APP lacks specific KPIs on gender, youth, language diversity, and or rural versus urban reach. Can the MDDA explain how equity and redress are being monitored and reported upon? And then the budget includes allocations for digital support, content production, and ethics training, yet the number of funded initiatives remains relatively low. How does MDDA determine the value for money of each intervention? And is there scope to increase delivery within the available envelope? And then a question that the chair alluded to is that other than cost of employees, administrative and operational costs as a percentage of total budget are not clearly shown. It seems a whole lot of stuff is lumped together. Can MDDA provide a breakdown of how much of its annual budget goes to direct project support versus internal administration? And then moving on to GCIS, your strategic plan commits to transforming the media, advertising, and community media sectors. Yet your APP includes no measurable transformation targets beyond the media buying policy and awareness campaigns. So how do you intend to measure this? Two, you've budgeted over 27 million for G20 presidency communications, yet the APP shows only 9 G20 outreach events. Can the agency justify this cost and explain how it will deliver meaningful returns in terms of South Africa's reputation or citizen budget, citizen benefit? You target 70% increase in citizen satisfaction with government communication. What survey tools, feedback mechanisms, or independent assessments will be used to measure this satisfaction? And how often will these results be published? And this is something, Chair, that I've mentioned to you informally, but it's something that I intend to raise formally, even with the upcoming budget, departmental budget vote, which is the disbursements to entities or to subsidiaries, but without any measurement, without any measurement of performance. And my question to the GCIS in this regard is, you are responsible for oversight of the MDDA. How are you ensuring performance-based funding? How are you ensuring that your funding is performance-based? The clear reporting requirements, as well as alignment of the MDDA's APP targets with your transformation objectives. Finally, Chairperson, I really do commend the GCIS for outlining its strategic intent. However, I have a concern, Chairperson. The current results framework within the document includes several indicators that are actually outputs or activities rather than true outcomes. And without well-defined outcome indicators, Chair, it becomes difficult to measure impact or assess whether the department is achieving its goals. To support the department's shift towards results-based planning, I spent time last night, Chair, working on proposed refinements to the results framework. This proposal retains the 4 outcomes, but refines the indicators into outcome-focused ones, and adds 3 key planning elements, which are generally included in log frames of this sort, such as data source, reporting frequency, and responsible unit, based on standard practice. To be honest, Chair and colleagues, I'm uncomfortable to support the strategic plan and APP in their current form, especially with these indicators that are really unclear to me, and some not real indicators. And I would propose that the agency consider the proposed refinements. If they do not accept the ones that I propose, then they are free to perhaps do the refinement themselves, but present the committee with coherent, logical, and effective indicators and other aspects, other monitoring aspects. That is my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vilagazi. Honorable Subrathi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, may I request permission to keep my video off? I'm not in a very stable place for connectivity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me welcome both the presentations, and maybe let me begin with MDDA. We've always heard and we've seen over our oversight that MDDA has phenomenal amount of capacity in terms of in the work that they do, but the issue surrounding budget and funding has always been a challenge. We've seen in the presentation how the 0.2% USAF funding is used. And maybe my question there is, what is the funding gap that MDDA requires? I would like there to have been some clarity that given the funding, this is what we can do, but this is ideally where we would like to be. And this is what is needed, because ultimately for us to drive this entire digital ecosystem in terms of supporting MDDA, we need to understand what is the funding requirement of MDDA, what is that shortfall to achieve that vision so we can scale appropriately in the context of where we are in our country. Chairperson, with regards to MDDA, maybe the question is, the presentation speaks about the pending handover of equipment worth 20 million rands. So has an impact assessment been developed, a plan been developed, and what security criteria are in place for the recipients of these grants in aid? And is a sustainability plan required before receiving these equipment or support? A further question would be, what role is the MDDA playing in shaping local content output and maximizing the impact of community development on the national development framework? And how can MDDA give us confidence that the metrics they are to use to measure the impact are genuinely rooted in the transformation and change, rather than just meeting scorecard requirements? And our surveys of participants conducted to track the entity's work. And finally, regarding the expansion of community media, regarding the sustainability of these entities, how has the historic shortfall in community media sustainability been addressed, and what measures are in place to ensure compliance? Moving to GCIS, Chairperson, let me start by indicating that there are 3 key events that are taking place at the moment in the country, and I'm trying to grasp where its communication to the citizenry will sit. I've seen mention being made and allocation being made for the G20. And maybe my question to that is, we are already 6 months into the G20, South Africa in G20, and what communication has been done to the citizenry, and what is planned to be done in the next 6 months, so that by and large, the citizens of South Africa, the most rural of the rural people, all understand that what was this G20, and rather what is this G20, and what was this G20, and did they experience it and feel the impact of G20? So that would be my question around G20. I noted that there was no allocation regarding local government election. That is a significant national event that is to take place. And I noticed there has been indication, but no budget allocation for LGE. I'd like to understand where is that sitting in the ecosystem within government. And lastly, the president has announced the national dialogue. Again, with regards to that national event, I've seen no discussion surrounding that within GCIS's presentation, nor in the budget allocation. Maybe the question arises is, where is that funding for the national dialogue sitting, and what role would GCIS play to ensure that funding, the communication element of that funding, is sufficiently used and adequately used and effectively used, so that all citizens of our country are aware of this national dialogue, and more importantly, they all have an opportunity to input into the progress that is going to take place in the various events that are being planned around the national dialogue. Maybe another question, and I think it's been talked through, but probably I haven't grasped it fully, is one of the weaknesses we have noted is the lack of ministerial statements coming through. We see a lot of cabinet statements coming through by Minister and President, Mr. Pinshaveni, regarding what cabinet discussions are. But we have seen a lack of sufficient ministerial briefings to the citizens of this country. And if that takes place, I think our citizens will be better informed. And we always cite the example of the Minister of Energy. He indicated to us before the advent of winter that the country will pull through, and that gave us some level of comfort and confidence. So maybe the question is, how is GCIS, what role is GCIS playing, or what role do they anticipate to play to ensure that there are regular ministerial briefings that will take place in the country? Now, further on to GCIS, maybe, how does GCIS plan to implement an evidence-based approach to communications planning over the next 5 years, particularly, Chairperson, in terms of leveraging public input and sentiments, as well as monitoring and evaluating systems? What specific frameworks will be used to ensure timely, accurate, and accessible information, especially given the rise of disinformation and misinformation, and the need to cater for citizens who speak different official languages? And maybe on that aspect regarding official languages, we know that one of the outcome is to ensure that we have an informed citizenry, and one of the means of doing that is to ensure that we communicate in the 12 official languages. Maybe with regards to that, I'd like to understand, has there been an examination of the key information that we find it's necessary for us to communicate in the 12 official languages to our country? Clearly, there's so much we want to say, but we also have a budget. We can't say everything in the 12 official languages. Hence, there should be a prioritization of information. For example, the national dialogue, to me, should be one of the things that are prioritized, so that every person has an opportunity to know that a national dialogue is taking place. And that can only effectively be done if it's communicated in the 12 official languages. So my question is there also an element of prioritization around that there? And given that the budget allocation over the 2025 MTF period, how will GCIS prioritize spending across high impact areas whilst ensuring transparency and accountability in the use of funds? And maybe lastly, Chairperson, what strategies will GCIS employ to strengthen relations with media and improve the functioning of government communication system, particularly in fostering transparency and ensuring information sharing? Chairperson, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I will pause here.
Thank you very much. Honorable Shongwe, did you want to come back?
Yes, Chair. Let me just switch on my thing. It's just one question, Chair. The department, where is this? Okay. Just pardon me, Chair. Okay, Chair, the question is, can GCIS provide detailed breakdown of all media buying, public relations, and communication consultancy contract issued over the past 3 years, including the names of the companies, contracts, and values, performance of outcome? Sorry, values and performance and outcome. That's the only question I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shongwe. Before I hand over to you, Deputy Minister, I want to go back to the issue that Honorable Vilakazi raised, just in terms of the GCIS outcomes. Is there a standardized template that you are supposed to use, just in terms of how you put this together? Because if it says outcome indicator baseline 5-year target, and then if you go into the detail, I'm not sure if Honorable Vilakazi would have shared with the department what he's done, but you speak about a increased usage of development communication typologies. You speak about percentage growth in diversification of language sources. There's no clarity of baselines. There's no clarity of your data sources. There's no clarity about the frequency of measurement. Why is that? Because this is going to be very, very difficult for us to monitor. Should you not be giving more detailed information so that we know exactly how to hold you accountable? I mean, it's the same issue that I want to raise with the MDDA. It says that you have outputs, for example, number of stakeholder engagements, fundraising. How much are you trying to fundraise? You know, because that gives us a sense that you've thought through a question linked to one of the members about your funding gap. I think it was Honorable Subratha. You've thought through about how much you want to fundraise. You've thought through about where you need to go to raise this money, instead of just saying the number of proposals you're going to issue. Now, what do we hold you accountable for? Because we're not interested in the proposals, we're interested in the outcome. So how much are you trying to raise? The stakeholder engagements, what is it that you intend to get out? So that it's just not about the number of stakeholder engagements. And I want to lean to the issue that Honorable Vilakazi is saying. I have difficulty, honestly, you know, with the fact that we have to recommend vague output indicators to Parliament to be adopted for the purposes of appropriating funds for the department and the agency. I mean, I look at both these documents, and the question that I keep asking myself is that, will these strategic plans, which we're stuck with arguably for the next 5 years, unless midway you decide to amend, but will these strategic plans make a difference in the realization of your mandate? Whether it is community media sustainability, whether it is ensuring an informed, empowered citizenry, in your genuine hearts of hearts, do you believe that these documents are making a difference towards that? Because this is ultimately what you're saying you're going to be doing for the next 5 years. And I want to remind colleagues that we said to you last year already when we finished, I think, with some of our initial consultations, we said, engage us as you are doing this. Don't put us in a difficult position like we are now, where we are expected to ensure malicious compliance, basically, where we're supposed to tick boxes of things that, as far as we are concerned, don't make sense. Because now it's coming to a head. Next week, we're supposed to approve this. And frankly, I think most of us are very unhappy with what we have before us. Deputy Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm going to request that GCIS should lead with the responses, followed by MDDA. The chair.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, Deputy Minister. I'm abusing you because I'm the chair. I'm so sorry. But I do want just to add one last thing. You said that you're doing an institutional review of Brand South Africa, which will only be completed, or you will only look at an assessment report at the end of 2029. What is the problem with Brand South Africa? You've been saying over the last couple of years that you're moving it. Then why is it only going to take another 4 years before you complete that? Thank you, and my apologies once again.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. As I said, I'm going to start with GCIS, followed by MDDA. I hope the chair will also make a contribution. I will then wrap up through you, Chair, GCIS.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The details related to the content and intergovernmental coordination will be dealt with by the DDGs. I will respond to the 2 questions around the templates as well as the application of the log frame. Yes, we do have templates, and the data source, the data types that are being requested by members are contained in the detailed documents, where we provide the technical indicator descriptors that unpack the indicators, as well as provide details of the data source, the frequency of measurement, as well as the responsible function. Thank you.
Sandile, Mike.
I suppose it would help to undo the mute, Honourable Chair. Good morning to the Honourable Chairperson of our Portfolio Committee, Ms. Tiko, the Deputy Minister, Mr. Morolong, in the Presidency, Honourable members of the committee. Madam Chair, I wanted to present myself, but with kind permission, I would ask to switch the camera off because it is a little bit erratic, if that's okay with your permission, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Curran.
Okay, Honourable Chair, Honourable members, thank you very much. These are very rigorous and compelling questions. I'm going to try and do my best to give an initial response, and my colleagues will mop up and perhaps also DM guide where he thinks we may have erred. So I think, Honourable Chair and colleagues, the broad thrust that I'd like to share about the repositioning and the reorientation of the organisation, and I do want to assure, Madam Chair, in all the work we did, we made copious notes, for example, of your oversight visits, and when we did the schedule of strategy sessions, as you may have seen from the slide that Nomkosi presented about the genesis of the SP and the APP, those were amongst the very clear documents that were presented for us to think about and understand and ensure that we brought those kinds of advice and thinking on board. But obviously, this year has been a bit difficult and a bit different to previous iterations of this process. The unity government had a very sort of a different start to the concept of coherence of government. We did have a government comprising different organizations in the political landscape, which has been the result of our general election. So the development of the National Communication Strategic Framework, which, as you asked, Chair, is one of the big ticket items of this strategy and the action plan for the year, was quite an iterative process. And by that I mean it required, building a plane in a way while we were flying. So some of the iterations here are already advanced and some are being advanced. And obviously, in terms of that building of the plane and the flying, Honourable Chair, we've had to be very cautious in doing that, particularly when I come to some of the programs we've been doing, because you remember we did have this challenge of not being in a position to overspend. and end ourselves in very hot water with this committee and with the legislature generally, given the fact that the budget process took significantly longer, only being completed last week, but at the same time, still not 100% final. So we didn't want to overspend, but at the same time, Honourable Chair and members, we had to give expression to delivery of this communication mandate, putting in place the consultative processes around the development of the National Communication Strategic Framework, waiting for the medium-term strategic log frames of clusters to be completed, Honourable Chair. So I think if I give that context, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I must say, Honourable Chair, it hasn't been one that we don't feel we've risen to. And particularly from the side of our Deputy Minister and the Minister, they've been very, very hands-on in guiding us to try and be, at the same time, delivering aggressive communication, but at the same time ensuring that we adapt and develop systems that are more suitable to the kinds of critiques that we've experienced. So, for example, as the Deputy Minister may elaborate on later, but we can assure honourable members, there's a very, very intricate repositioning program going around us, so that in terms of the technical indicator descriptors and the operational plans that, and of course, you referred to, we are really workshopping them one by one to make sure that they meet the kinds of questions and issues that have been raised by various partners. So that being said, Honourable Chair, I think there are one or two issues I'd like to reflect on for the NCSF that was your question. I think, honourable members, the first posture is that the lesson learned was that building the NCSF on, firstly, the 30-year review did two things. It was able to consolidate a clearer sense of where we have progressed as a nation. And you don't build hope by constantly referring in the National Communication Strategy to the challenges that we face. We had to build a narrative based on progress that our democratic government has achieved. And that being said, the second one was that the research was showing that a lot of the work being done, particularly through NECOM, was starting to yield results, and that availability of energy was starting, firstly, to ensure that the implications of communication can rest on the trajectory of an improved public mood. It's not an enormous improved public mood, Honourable Chair, but it's a significant number of pointers, I think 6 in total or 7, which suggested to us in the NCSF that we needed to make sure that we robustly communicate in programs of opportunities, programs of intervention. So, for example, you'll see in the action plan of the NCSF very clear attention paid to a comprehensive suite of economic growth and job creation work. I mean, even today, there's deputy ministers out in the field. And I cite the deputy minister in the presidency, for example, Ms. Mhlauli, leading a whole program of awareness around opportunities for young people through the Presidential Youth Initiative. So what we've tried to do, firstly, Chair, is build on that mood, build on the baseline of the previous NCS, which was really looking at the assessment of our gains of democracy and ensuring that the programs that we are centering the NCSF on are very, very rooted in the medium-term strategic framework and the priorities of the National Unity Government. Obviously, Chair, if I may just say that is what we learned as strategic communicators in the beginning, that content has to determine what it is we communicate to the public. And that content is very largely shaped by those things that the public are arranging. And very interestingly and very prudently, the things of job creation, of being better off in difficult times, through various social wages interventions or through issues of social relief of distress, and then dealing with a state that's more able to respond to the citizens. Those are very, very much the center, the nucleus of the NCSF, and those are very much the nucleus of the medium-term strategic plan. So firstly, there's that macro theme of ensuring alignment around content priorities that the nation has raised, either through the ballot box or also through public opinion research. The second area, and therefore I'm saying, Honourable Chair, to respond to your question, reports on the kinds of delivery around the development communication activities, the degree to which we run advertising campaigns that prioritize awareness about opportunities, awareness about where do I get relief from natural disasters, etc. Those kinds of accessing enabling documentation from Home Affairs that's more efficient. That's the nucleus of our communication work. The second area, Honourable Chair and members, was around areas of challenge. I mean, the democratic government has never said that everything is rosy, that everything is going well, and therefore there are very catalytic sectoral interventions, such as the National Logistics Crisis Committee, such as the Integrated Crime Prevention Strategy, such as the whole regime of renewed energy interventions under the NECOM. We also have a whole partnership with business around reconceptualizing the narrative both domestically and abroad about the South Africa that we are now. The South Africa that works for all South Africans, which the National Communication Strategy theme shares with the nation. So Honourable Chair, these APEX initiatives, and I'm going to come to G20 as my next response, are very key in ensuring that the challenge areas that the National Strategic Communication Framework has identified, also again rooted in challenges identified in the medium-term strategic framework, are very, very assertively responded to in the way we communicate. Obviously, part of that, Honourable Chair, has been the issues around natural disasters. They have become very, very prevalent in our communication, in our immediate communication, and that's a direct response to climate change. It's a direct manifestation of the kinds of positions that we've held in global diplomacy, in public economic diplomacy, that we must have mitigation measures around it. So that all finds itself. The third area that came out very strongly, Ms. Nico, was the matter of face-to-face communication, direct engagement of government with the citizens, okay? And that is why we've ramped up the kinds of issues like ensuring that we do public engagements or public education initiatives around a range of issues that might not be aligned to some of the core priorities, which came directly out of the Portfolio Committee's visit to the Eastern Cape. So, for example, education around digital literacy, education around cybersecurity thing. So while they might be within departmental plans in the departmental communication strategy. As GCIS, we've teased some of those out to supplement and ensure that we communicate those within the broader thing, and doing that directly communicate with communities in the mediums that they prefer. So I've given a broad stroke, Honourable Chair, and I think time is not, I can't go on forever, which I possibly could, but let me pause there. And then just generally, perhaps the last one is that there's been a very strong sense of community media. The Portfolio Committee has raised that with us very, very sharply. Everything we do now, and I'm going to come to the G20, for example, is embedded in making sure that we work with community media in communicating those campaigns of government, okay? The second area on G20, Honourable Chair, I'll give a shot at that too, because it's in the area of responsibility. So the Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, Honourable Subrathi, Honourable Vilakazi, I think both asked. I can assure you, Honourable Members, this is where the plane has been building, flying. We have a very active set of platforms, the digital platforms, our WhatsApp groups, etc. Where I hope, for example, on Friday last week, we're in Ilembe, in KZN outside eThekwini, very, very big event with Horshies, with mayors, with youth organizations. We had one in Ugu on the South Coast in the same week. So I can say without any fear of contradiction, Honourable Members, two things. We have a typology of outreach events that covers ones that we are driving centrally as GCIS, like the ones I've just mentioned, and they always go hand in hand with the community media dialogue. So if you have a community town hall meeting, I mean, the one in Ilembe, for example, I think had about almost 200 folks represented on Friday. We immediately take one of the leadership to a community radio station later in the day. So I think in this case, it was one of the local leaders, the mayor. And interestingly enough, Honourable Chair, the communities have very strong views on what they want to feature in the G20, whether it's about climate change issues or whether it's about how young people see their future in the globe. So what we're doing with that is, yes, as GCIS, the typology is about 5 typologies. Some areas we are fully leading, other areas we're supporting departments. So for example, when a sector goes with, let's say, the Minister of Science and Innovation, the way Dr. Nzimande did recently in Mpumalanga, we put those leaders or those partners on a community radio talk show about where science and innovation sits. But on the second side of that, Honourable Chair, honourable members, we're working with the presidency under the leadership of, which is now in the hands of both Minister Chaveni and former Deputy President Mlambo Ngcuka, on the Civil Society Summit, the Social Sector Summit. So what we're doing is we're ensuring that these outreach platforms are now more and more customized. So that's why I said it's been iterative. We've had to build the plane a little bit while flying, but that these outreach platforms now, honourable members, serve as two-way communication channels. So we harvest voices, vox pops, written submissions, and we are still not 100% tight, but we're working on how to channel those into the various sectoral processes. Obviously, GCIS is working very closely with M20, the media team, driven by SANEF, with the B20, the business leadership, and with the C20 movement, and a range of others, just to really ensure that there's content and feedback around this. So I can assure honourable members, I am very convinced, if you look at the scorecard of the year to date, we've had a multiple range of activities, community-based dialogue in Kwakwa, outreaches in Khayelitsha and other areas in the greater City of Cape Town Metro with school youth about the G20, what it is, what it's about. The narrative, Honourable Subrati, has been very much around what is G20, why does it matter to South Africa? And to do that, Honourable Chair, we have a very comprehensive content framework on that, and then the value statement at the end of the content statement is what are the leave behinds for South Africa. Some of them are very clear. So Gauteng colleagues are doing things, Honourable Chair, like partnering a school with one of the G20 countries where they're going to leave, what do you call these things, a cyber lab in the school. So Japan or Germany or whoever's partnered with the school, and they will leave behind. So the last iteration of this G20 outreach is the legacy projects, and that people will remember G20. Obviously, there's a G20 song, and last week, for example, I asked the team to really make sure that we socialize it, popularize it, much as we did with the Football World Cup. So I do believe, Honourable Chair, that there is some very, very solid work being done in the G20 space, both in terms of legacy, but also in terms of ensuring access, understanding, and two-way communication around that, okay? Mis and disinformation, Honourable Chair, I think you have a point that we might need to have a look at how we iterated in the APP, but it's certainly in the operational plan very, very strongly as a partnership between myself and Branch 2. Mr. Nene Sandile might elaborate. Honourable Chair, the best thing I can do is give an example. You'll recall last week before last, we had massive floods in Mthatha, where one member of the public felt the need to go and say that the municipality there had opened up the sluice gates of the Mthatha Dam to flood the residents downstream. Now, honourable members, within hours of that, we were able to have a very, very curated response where we quickly sent out in various languages, with translation with isiXhosa and with English. We said, what was the reality of it? There was no such thing. There was, that dam doesn't even have sluice gates for that matter. It only is a spillover. And unfortunately, when you get a certain volume of water, it will spill over. So Honourable Chair, there's a regime in place in the operational plan where we have a relationship with various in and outside of government partners, very largely curated under the JCPS cluster and the communication workstream of the JCPS. So obviously, I can say confidently that of the clusters, that works very well, the JCPS communication stream. That is working on this management, but we have a range of interventions, perhaps even a typology. So for example, we'll stamp something blatantly fake, like you see when they use a minister's account, or secondly, we'll say, no, hold on, this is misrepresenting information. Honourable Chair, Nene might remind me, and Ms. Nkosi or Dalson, but perhaps we do need to do a little more work on the legislative scope. We have done international benchmarking, Honourable Chair, and perhaps one of the most important partnerships we had was with the Prime Minister's office in Britain from the previous Prime Minister, Sunak. They were reaching out all over the world with social partners around mis and disinformation training. We built our own model here. We're going out to communicators, to local government structures, to political leadership in all spheres of government to train and prepare the teams to understand it, what it is, to how to assess it and check if it's fake or if it's misleading or whatever, and then to make sure that there's a concomitant response to that. So we do have quite an aggressive template around that.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
need.
You've run out of time. Thanks, Michael.
May I just conclude? So perhaps what we need to do, Honourable Chair, is see how we incorporate that today. Media briefings are in a grid, Honourable Chair, and we are working very aggressively, Honourable Vilakazi, to make sure that we ramp up the media briefing cycle. But there is a big innovation of that as part of the GCIS turnaround program. Thank you, Honourable Chair, for the indulgence, and I tried level best. I'm sure colleagues might mop. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Through you, Chairperson. If I can also then equally switch off my video.
There's
Chairperson,
nothing wrong with your connection, Mr. Nene. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me start with the question around the mechanism that we use around performing or exercising oversight over entities. We can confirm, Chairperson, that we do have the entity oversight framework, which really is founded on a number of legislations around, for instance, the PFMA, as well as some of the treasury regulations indicate in terms of the performance of the entities and how they should be reporting. On top of that, Chairperson, in the same entity oversight framework, we do then, before the beginning of each financial year, we then have minister and the board signing what we call governance agreements in case of the MDDA, as well as the shareholder compact in case of brand asset. That framework, Chairperson, governs the expectation in as far as performance, both financial and non-financial expectations of the ministry to the board. So and on top of that, Chair, what we then do is that we have a number of forums that looks at the performance. For instance, on the quarterly basis, we have a DGCO sessions to look at the performance. We do have the board and DM and the board ministry meetings that we have. And again, around the performance, we also have a number of sessions that we have, including, the Secretaries Forum, as well as the Finance Forum. We also look at the audit action plans of the entities. So we look at the totality of what the entities has achieved, both in financial and non-financial. Of course, from time to time as well, we have the quarterly performance session where there's feedback mechanism after every quarter that is sent from the ministry to the entity. Those things will give feedback in terms of the things that the department is actually picking up that should be on the side of the board for corrective measures in the following quarter. So at least we have that. The other element that I wanted to touch on, Chairperson, is that just to latch on to what Michael had said, maybe what is different between the NCSF that we've done before and currently. With this one, Chairperson, we had to do a benchmarking exercise to 10 different countries. This would include Australia, and it was very specific because we were now going to be communicating or using a framework that is going to be cascaded down to provinces as a framework for communicating the 7 administration priorities. And this 7 administration is a government of national unity. So in the international benchmarking exercise that we conducted, we looked specifically at the countries that are led by a different political entities. And for instance, one of the first things that we looked at on the continent, Kenya was one, Australia, Belgium. But specifically, we then picked up, which is what we gave as an assurance, that the NCSF that we presented and was duly approved was in line with the international best practice. In fact, if you look at the white paper on European communication policy, it makes provision, Chairperson, that whatever the European government does, it should ensure that communication is centered around citizens' empowerment, which is exactly what we do. It also says that that government should have a working relations with the media, including the use of new technologies. And of course, it also it emphasized the point around ensuring that government should at all material times understand the public opinion that will come from it. And that goes straight to the question around if we have mechanism that track that. We have a public perception research that we run as GCIS. Now it does one of two things, Chairperson, our research. It allows us to engage and know what the citizens' concerns are, but it also allows us to package and advise government in terms of the messaging based on the concerns that the citizens are raising. For instance, in the last tracker research, one of the result that we picked up is that there were about just over 66% of South Africans who felt that the country was going in the wrong direction. And we were able to pick up in terms of the specific indices that they were not concerned about. For instance, there was the issue of electricity, it was issue of corruption, it was issue of a crime. But what we found when we did the next session of the tracker research after the government's intervention through the maintenance or at least the turnaround strategy around electrification as well as maintaining the energy, is that those indices improved. So we have a mechanism in terms informed by research in terms of the work that we do. Chairperson, the one other point that I wanted to raise is that in the area of in the question that was asked around GOSA TV specifically, Chair, we are paying per month to NEMISA because the incubation is still sitting with NEMISA. So per month we pay 42,300 rand, and the payment is specifically for maintenance and hosting, as well as the back end. And part of what we are trying to do with NEMISA is that we have an element of skills transfer, so that because we didn't have the skills internally, so that we are able to make sure that at least we learn and we are able to host, and we are able to ensure that GOSA TV can be accessed through the GCIS website. The other element, Chairperson, that I wanted to relate, at least deal with, is that one, in terms of the languages, yes, it is our ambition to ensure that at least we use all official language. Hence, we have now said in terms of our target, we're looking at 70% of languages other than English. So one of the things that we are putting forward, Chairperson, is that we are going to be ensuring that at the minimum, we use the 3 official languages of the province, because the benefit we have as GCIS is that we have presence in all the provinces. So it is pretty much easier to do that. But internally, we have internal capacity to deal with at least 4 languages, Setswana, English, Afrikaans. But we have also then appointed a service provider to be able to deal with the languages where, for instance, we do not have the capacity. So yes, we are able to do that. Just to demonstrate our capabilities, Chairperson, in terms of Vuk'uzenzele, for instance, we are the only institution that produce a publication in Braille, and that's part of the extent in which we try to make sure that we have universal access to government communication for an empowered citizen. The other element, Chairperson, that was asked was the question around the media buying. Chair, it's and this is the question, or at least the issue that the DM spoke about. Chairperson, you'll recall that I think the Cabinet Memo number 8 of 1998 is the one that actually empowered GCIS to say all placement of national government campaigns and advertising must be done through GCIS's media bulk buy. But safe to say that we have quite a number of mixed results in terms of compliance. So what we have now done, which is new, is that one, we've put in place a client retention strategy, because you are quite right. We had a maximum of 20 national government departments and about 12 entities. So the going forward, Chairperson, what we want to do is that we want to amass and be true to that government resolution, which will see, Chairperson, that if we are able to get to 50% or at least more of the entities, because we talk about entities, but the entities in terms of their numbers is over 700 entities. And we are able to then at least attract the other departments, both national government departments as well as provincial government. To do that, we've now implemented the retention strategy, which then allows the GCIS officials to go to provinces to talk about the importance of a centralized buying mechanism. Hence, we're taking the needed buying policy to cabinet for its approval. What it will do, Chairperson, in terms of the highlight is that we have almost a four approach to the policy. First of all, it says that immediately when the APPs of departments are done, what we will want to do is that we'll have a session with the departments which are going to give us the pipeline campaigns that are going to be finalized, or at least that would have been finalized. It then allows us to go to the media to make sure that at least we are able to then negotiate a 1 year's discount based on what has been approved. Then the second element would really be about making some of the requests, spending requests, which really would be about the technical element, which is the business case. And then the second element, when the spending requests are done, then we focus on the advice that comes with using GCIS in terms of what is the nature of the campaign, what sort of platforms would be appropriate to that campaign, and what sort of frequency are you looking at? Because we want to avoid a situation where, for instance, this committee had advised on the post bank and others where merely a thing that ought to have been run as a campaign was not run. So that's part of what we're going to do. And finally, we are going to do a closeout report in terms of the campaign. So that's the totality of what we're trying to do. The other element that we've done on the issue of the National Strategic Framework, Chairperson, is that we've now, along with the National Government Communication Strategic Framework, is that we produce for cabinet approval the communication protocol for the executives. Simply put, we are trying to ensure that there's coherent in messaging by the executive and members of the executives. And of course, that's the protocol that is going to try and assist us in some of the elements that we were sometimes found wanting in terms of the messaging. Chair, the question that you raised about why is there 5% in terms of the approval, that we want to bring context, Chairperson. So in terms of the totality of the MEC Sector Charter Council, we are simply saying that because in the revised sector code, which we are waiting for its gazette, we are looking at the 7 elements: ownership, management, and control. But we are simply saying 5% for us would mean we don't want to go to the exempted or at least the small or qualifying small enterprises, because those are not the game changers. Rather, what we are looking for is that we are looking for what we call generic. Generic are the big entities which make from 50 million and above. So that's the 50% in terms of ensuring that we diversify those who are, trailblazers in terms of where the maximum economic values would be. Secondly, we are also saying, Chairperson, by 5%, we are then saying 30% of the enterprise supply development will come from women-owned businesses. So that's the part. So I think if you read it, because you would have to at least go down to the elements of the 7 elements that we are looking for. And again, we are looking at youth-owned enterprises. We're also looking at enterprises that are owned by people with disabilities, because that's where we want to ensure that there's meaningful economic participation by the designated groups, and that's what we are looking for. So I think we've explained the element around.
Please wrap up, Mr. Nene.
Chairperson, as we wrap up, Chair, the one element that we can also provide, because there was a request to say we can provide a breakdown of whom we have enlisted under MDDA buying since we started, that we can always do, Chairperson. And lastly, Chair, the issue around the evaluation of the mechanism that established Brand SA is that we picked up that in the trust deed, there are shortcomings that are there. For instance, one of the biggest shortcomings that that mechanism was established so that we can allow Brand SA to make sure that they fundraise. But we've also picked up that there are elements that they can't do, and they are constrained by the existence of the trust deed. Hence, we are looking at the different mechanism in which we can assist Brand SA, including maximizing, the country managers, because South Africa has international, or at least there's an interest in terms of the different markets that can generate economy from investment point of view, from tourism point of view, as well as a number of key elements that falls under the nation brand. Chairperson, the last bit for me, for instance, is that I think in terms of the fake news, what we are simply saying, Chair, is that this work had started around 2012, when we were still talking about media literacy, digital literacy. At the time, GCIS and DCDT had appointed the University of Limpopo as part of the ambassador in terms of how we report to the UN. This year, we also met again with the DCDT, and the university that has been appointed is the University of Western Cape. But at the heart of it is that we are working with a number of institutions, including Media Monitoring Africa, on fact-checking, as well as what Michael referred to classify and label things that are fake. But what we want to do more, Chair, is to make sure that there's awareness that is created, not at the level where we come when the damage has already been done. Chairperson, with that, I think we will end at this point. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think it's MDDA, or is it the CFO?
There was one issue where they requested the breakdown of the goods and services. This is the breakdown of the 233.4 million, whereby we have allocated different amounts on specific items. I'm not sure, Chair, if I should go item by item, or is this enough?
I think you can share it, Madam. Maybe share it with the Secretariat so we can go through it. Thank you.
Oh, all right, thanks. And then lastly, Chairperson, I think you raised an issue around the disbursements. I wanted to add on what Sandile has said to indicate that on a quarterly basis, before we issue all the transfers to the entities, we review their spending plans in line with the performance and what they have submitted on the APP targets to ensure that the spending is aligned. And also we review their interim financial statements to ensure that also what they are reporting to the National Treasury and HSA is aligned. And also, secondly, we do submit the in-year monitoring reports on a monthly basis to the ministry as well as to National Treasury, whereby we outline the spending and revenue collection trends. And also, lastly, when we do the budget through the National Treasury process, we do also stipulate the key deliverables for GCIS, Brand SA, and MDDA. Because when Treasury allocates the budget, they allocate according to what we plan to do in terms of our APPs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam. Can we move to MDDA?
Chair, I'll ask the CEO to respond to the rest of the other questions. I'll deal with the issue of the funding gap. CEO.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. I'll start on the studios that we are handing over, whether we know that the sustainability or not. In the presentation, we spoke about the, I apologize, I should have my camera on, Chair. We spoke about our monitoring and evaluation work, which is based on an M&E framework grounded on the theory of change, where impact is at the heart of the work that's done. And so for the projects that we do fund, we do carry out monitoring and evaluation. And it is a key consideration of the agency on the ability for those projects to be able to be sustainable. I will take it just a little bit back so that we build the context. By the time we do the handovers, the MDDA board would have approved the projects for funding. And at the stage of the application for funding, projects are expected to not just only present their financials, but also their business plans, which would include ways in which they will be able to build their sustainability. And these are considered by the board before each of the project receives the funding. Chairperson of the committee, I would also just like to indicate that presently on our website, mdda.org.za, we already have information up and details required for the projects that would be looking to apply for funding in the current financial year. Those will be dispersed then in the upcoming financial year, and that details the policy as well as the conditions that each applicant must meet before they are considered for funding. And the monitoring and evaluation then happens post the implementation of such of the approval rather by the board. In the area of the reduction of dependency, I think the chairperson of the board will just bring the context when he responds, but there are limited resources for funding the community media sector. As such, there is a need for a more strategic, continuous interventions that are provided to ensure that community media is sustainable. And working with GCIS, we are continuously looking at ways in which there could be further collaboration to ensure that there is meaningful support without it being dependent-based. In the current strategic plan, there is an indication of a reduction in repeat funding, wherein the focus would not just be, yes, on equipment or capital investment, which is expensive, but also looking at other areas that would be empowering for community media projects to be able to continue without depending on funding from the MDDA. Honorable Shongwe asked about whether we know the audiences that are reached by these community media broadcasters and publishers. Chair, I also want to refer back to both the strategic plan and the APP, wherein we are saying that the MDDA is providing support on ABC circulation. This will give us the exact number of printing and distribution and the areas in which these publications are distributed. We are expecting the first report at the end of the month of August, and that will give us an indication of where we presently are. In terms of the broadcasters, we spoke about the ABC, or rather the BRC, Broadcast Research Council, wherein we are collaborating to ensure that there's representation of the community media broadcasters, and that will give us an indication of the number of listeners that both the community television broadcasters have, as well as the community radio stations. And just to say, in terms of impact, the interventions, while very episodic in that the board will approve the funding and we will implement over an 18-month period, post those, the MDDA continues to provide training and support for those community media projects to ensure that they remain viable. Additionally, we have an annual evaluation study which looks at the work that we do. This informs the decisions that the agency makes in how we progress forward and the kinds of interventions that we provide. Additionally, we do have an impact assessment study that we run every 5 years to look at the interventions that we provided, lessons learned, and which areas of improvement. These are continuous and were the same reasons that were able to assist us in being more strategic and refined in our digital intervention for the community media sector, because we evaluated the interventions that we've provided. And this takes me to the question on the digital support that is provided. Presently, our digital interventions include training. We have already entered an agreement and are collaborating with Centec on using their platform to access community radio stations from a streaming point of view, including community TV. We are looking to scale that. There are resource constraints, and therefore within the APP target, our targets are linked to projects that would receive funding because resources are immediately available for those. The development of a hub which will house content developed by community media where we would have provided training. We have already looked at resources and these are available, and this will be implemented through our communications strategy. We've also had several engagements with other partners who would help us to build in this area. Chair, just on the question of capacity building and skills development, the answer is yes. We will provide training, and there is a number of these trainings that we provide. I will make an example of the governance workshop and compliance, and this deals specifically with the area where the MDDA is actively looking to encourage community media practitioners to operate the projects as social entrepreneurship initiatives, in that they should make enough revenue that they are sustainable. And so compliance and governance are key in those. After each of those training, there are evaluations that are carried out by the research unit within the agency. And through that report, we are also able to see then a need for us to improve in the training that is being offered, and also the potential partnerships that we would need to deliver on the training. More specifically, Chair, I think you asked the questions and perhaps even a concern around our stakeholder engagements. The stakeholder engagements are directly linked to the targets that we seek to perform. For example, our stakeholder engagement in the previous financial year had been with MIC CETA, and that has then yielded the result of this memorandum of agreement, which we will be implementing, wherein we will be able to deliver the training that is accredited to community media. Other engagements include in publications as well as broadcasters such as Prime Media, Kagiso Media, through a Kagiso Media organization, MediaMark. In those stakeholder engagements, in the month of August, we will be able to deliver a sales and marketing training, which is key for us to deliver. The identification of the training areas that we carry out are based on a research that the agency carries out. Our recent training that was carried out by the MDDA skills assessment report, I mentioned earlier the gaps that existed and the programs that we are then working on to deliver. I do want to indicate, Chair, that with both the strategic plan and the annual performance plan, there are very specific activities that each of the units within the agency are performing to ensure that we bring those to life, but also not just from an activity point of view, in that our approach is impact-based and not just meeting the targets. As such, Chair, I do want to say confidently that the work that's done, while we are presenting just the quantum figures, the focus is always on the impact and the work that needs to be done. Chair, there was a question on the breakdown in terms of how much goes towards our administrative costs versus what goes towards our programs and the programs that we do. I will allow for the CFO to briefly respond to that. And then the chairperson of the board will then assist with the question on the gaps that exist within the community media sector to ensure the sustainability. Ms. Baji.
Thank you, and good afternoon once again. In terms of our budget breakdown per program, we have 117 million for administration, and that's 20 over the medium term, and that's the 34% of our budget. So we are anticipating to spend 37 million in 2025-2026, 39 million in 2026-2027, and 40 million in the outer year, amounting to 117 70 million overall and 34% of the budget. And then for community and small commercial media, we are anticipating to spend 171 million, which is over the medium term, which is 50% of our budget. So 57 million for the current financial year, or rather 57 million throughout the medium term. And then for partnerships, public awareness and advocacy, we are anticipating to spend 15 million over the medium term, which is 4% of our budget. And then we also have a budget for capacity building, 21 million for capacity building and sector development. So 6% of our budget goes to capacity building and sector development. And that's 21 million over the medium term. And then with regards to innovation and research, we are anticipating to spend 6% of our budget towards that program, and that gives us 21 million over the medium term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chair, I will deal with the funding gap in respect of I could go into details, but we can supply that. I think that in summary, for community media, ops only, we're looking at between 130 to 279 million. For community TV, ops only, we're looking at about 6.4 million. And then print media, we're looking at about 94.5 million rand to about 340. So in total, Chair, we're looking at about 625 million rand gap that if we were to say MDDA could adequately do what it's supposed to do and adequately support the community media sector, that's what would be required. And this is the effort that we want to put in place to try and raise that kind of funding. Obviously, looking at what will come in from the USAF levy plus what government is giving. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister?
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson. The one issue I want to respond to relates to the National Communication Strategic Framework, whose first chapter came into being in 2009. As it has been indicated, Chair, the National Communication Strategic Framework is informed by the communication environment. And that is why it is reviewed every 5 years, which is aligned to the term of national and provincial governments. It sets the tone, Chair, inter alia for municipalities, for provincial governments, and for government departments to develop their own strategies in line with the National Communication Strategic Framework and plans. The role of GCIS in that regard, as a custodian of government communication, is not just to coordinate those plans, but it's also to work together with these relevant entities to make sure that there is proper coordination of government messaging. If there was any time where we ever questioned the strength of the National Communication Strategic Framework, would be between the period 2020 to 2021, when we're dealing with crisis communication during the COVID era, where you would see clusters responding to difficult questions at the time and communicating government plans to deal with vaccine challenges that we're facing in the country at the time. This is what the National Communication Strategic Framework intends to achieve. And so we think that it's very important that this APP reflects the National Communication Strategic Framework. It also, Chairperson, as indicated, is informed by what we have now as the draft protocol for members of the executive, which is intended at making sure that there's coherent communication and coherent messaging by members of the executive. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Let me thank everybody for their responses. I'm sure that there's quite a number of things that members would have liked to follow up on, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to do so. Honorable Vilakazi, I really need to move to the next agenda item. Are you going to die if I don't recognize you?
Chair, I did make a proposal. I just didn't hear any follow-up on it.
Let me speak to, or maybe just repeat the proposal, so I'm sure we're talking about the same thing.
I proposed, Chair, a submission to GCIS on refined indicators, because whilst I accept what the DG said and what Mr. Curran said about the fact that there are more detailed internal documents that are not necessarily for our eyes, still, even at the high level, Chair, at the level that we are able to hold oversight on, it's important that especially strategic documents such as these make sense. So I feel that I have to insist, Chair, that certainly from our side as the DA, we would like to see these indicators, which are really the important aspects that we monitor, refined and reflect what we all are hoping the documents will be able to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Vilakazi. Yes, I was going to address that, but thank you for the emphasis. I think process moving forward is that we are going to have a look. I did see somewhere in the documentation the full strategic plan of the GCIS, which I will share with you, Honorable Vilakazi, if you don't have. We expect that the committee advisors will start working on the report of the committee on this budget vote. Now, I have sought advice which I have received around amendments, because you remember one of the issues that I had raised was the fact that we are of the opinion that there are a lot of things that are very casual in nature as they relate to what we should be exercising oversight about. Now, I am informed that in terms of the money bills, where it happens that committees want to make amendments to the vote, we need to consult the Standing Committee on Appropriations and provide the conditions that need to be met before the budget can be recommended for the House. The Appropriations Committee will communicate the conditions to the relevant minister, and in our case, give her 2 days to respond. Then the Appropriations Committee, when reporting to the House, will include the proposed amendments from the committee, the motivation for the amendments, and the comments from the minister in that regard. It is then my submission to this meeting that once we have had an opportunity to fully peruse the strategic plan, where members strongly feel there's a need for amendments, that we follow the route that relates to money bills. I do think that it is a better route than wanting to say that we just don't agree and would not want to recommend the appropriation of this budget. Can I just check with a quick thumbs up if that is in order for members? And obviously the timeframes are very tight on this. Silence means consent. Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. Thank you so much for your concurrence. Okay, Deputy Minister, once again, let's thank you, the leadership of the GCIS, the leadership of MDDA, for spending your morning with us, really taking us through these documents, ensure that we understand where your thinking comes from. The documents are tabled to Parliament as per legislative requirement, and I think that any actions then on the documents from here on then become the purview of Parliament. We are now going to deal with our oversight report on Gauteng. I don't want to keep you if you would wish to leave the meeting. So I am thanking you in advance in the event that we do lose you. Thank you once again. Mr. Dr. Medupe, you have no more than 20 minutes. We must be done by 12:30. Thank you, Michael. We must be done by 12:30. So if you could lead us on the presentation of the long outstanding oversight report to Gauteng. Dr. Matupe?
Afternoon, Chair. 20 minutes quite tight. Nevertheless, Mr. Maleka would take us through Chair, and we'll try and make sure that we compress everything within the allocated time. Thank you so much. Mr. Maleka?
Good afternoon, honorable members, colleagues on the platform. 20 minutes high, honorable gentlemen, that's over 80 pages, but nonetheless, we'll try to do the best. As the committee is aware, we took oversight on the 24th to the 28th of
Mr. Maleka?
Hello.
I have given the
ma'am.
committee advisors sufficient time for them to know they'll have no more than 20 minutes to present this report. So what we are expecting is for you to hone in on the recommendations. If there are items on the observations that you think you need to highlight, but we've been sitting with this report, I'm sure, for over a month or so, if not 2 months. So if you could just hone in on the recommendations in particular, and if there's any observations, do not read word by word. Thank you so much, sir.
And all noted, Slalo. Hajira, can we then just move down to we'll just go straight to the first day of the presentation, of the oversight, which is the 24th. So on the day one of the visit, we did visit the SABC and SAPO. If you can just move to the recommendations, I think we'll just go straight to it, because also the recommendations are a lot, Slal, so I don't want to. Right. Just move to the recommendations, please. I think they're on page 15, page 15. How did you get there? Go back to page 15, like there's recommendations per day, Ms. Sally. I can start to read if maybe that's the issue. So yeah, the recommendations from the engagements with the stakeholders at the SABC, I think that's the title of the first set of recommendations, is it? Yeah. So the committee delegation made the following recommendations, really, that the minister must ensure that the department does not hold the sector at ransom by not providing guarantees for the conducive and enabling broadcasting and ICT policy environment. That the DCT should audit all stockpiles of STBs, which is a set of boxes, in post offices, and provide quarterly updates to the committee, including statistics on distribution and activations. During the Eastern Cape oversight, the committee witnessed numerous stockpiles at post office outlets that were not even inventoried. That the DCDT should also report to on the status of preparations towards digital switchover of the remaining 4 provinces, and report on the progress to date towards the High Court judgment between ETV and the minister and the department. Sorry, the next one is that there's something wrong with that, Hachira, that the department, that there is lack of accurate data to support the digital switchover, that the minister should, in the interim, consult widely to develop a new strategy to encourage people to pay for TV licenses. That the minister provide a full report of the unused SABC assets and a plan on the selling of those assets to offset public broadcasters' finances. I'm lost now, Hajira. Jesus. Okay, yeah, that the deputy president and both the ministers, DCDT and minister in the presidency, ensure that all government departments that owe television licenses lead by example and urgently reconcile their accounts with the public broadcaster. That the minister ensure that the DCDT expedite policy developments to regulate OTTs, especially in the wake of misinformation and malinformation. That the minister and the DCDT provide regular updates to the committee on policy guidelines to curb misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. That the Minister of DCDT working with the Minister of in the Presidency, future-proof community media sector as an important pillar of democracy. Together with the departments, invest towards creating audience ratings for community media so that data informs policy certainty for the sustainable public service media sector. That the Minister of Communications and Minister in the President ensure that the percentage of government advertising spend is ring-fenced for the SABC and community media. That the Minister DCDT should encourage SABC to ensure content relevance to the audience because digital natives make up the majority of the country. That the Minister of the DCDT ensure greater due diligence before licenses are granted to community media by ICASA. That the Minister of DCDT ensure ICASA reports on strategies to reduce administrative burden attached to licenses for community broadcasting and print media, and that the Minister of DCDT ensures ICASA reports on public outreach campaigns to educate the public on ICASA regulations affecting community broadcasters. That the Minister of DCDT ensures that the FBB appears before the committee to present the regulation mandate of video on demand, market, and interpretation by the broadcasting sector. That together with other state organs, both ministers of DCDT and in the presidency should collaboratively increase awareness campaigns on misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. That the Auditor General, where ready, updates the committee on progress towards investigating the reasons for SABC not to gain revenue traction following the 3.2 billion bailout. That PRC, which is it's the body that deals with the research, Broadcasting Research Council, that's what it's called, should address the unreliability of their audience data for community radio stations where possible. That BRC should reconcile all data related and to the analog switch off and in relevance to the High Court ruling and present to the committee before the second term, which is probably passed now. And the last one on that is that, and should also present the new methodology for collecting RAMs data sets before the end of the second term. The committee notes the appeal by the SABC for urgent discussions on how to secure immediate funding to keep the broadcaster operational and calls on National Treasurer to respond to all portfolio funding challenges, and it will continue to engage counterpart committees of parliament to seek a resolution. At the least, National Treasury should provide the SABC with guarantees to be able to source investment elsewhere. The committee appeals to the Speaker of National Assembly and the Deputy President to urgently pronounce on a way forward for processing of the bill because further delays impact on the sustainability of the public broadcaster. The committee urges the minister to fast-track policy development to create market certainty and stimulate further sector investment. The SABC, together with the sector associations, submitted to the committee their frustration with the delays in concluding key policies and legislations to stimulate competition and attract investment to the sector. The committee further urges the department to solicit partnerships to collaborate to develop strategies to produce compelling content and an innovative advertising strategy for the SABC to remain competitive. The committee will continue to monitor the extent to which collaborations and partnerships strategies bring value to the SABC. Further, the committee will host a joint committee sitting with the Standing Committee on Appropriations as well as the Committee on Finance and GTEC to better understand and find solutions for the funding challenges of the Portfolio Committee. It will engage the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry to share views on progress towards regulation of OTT platforms. We'll endeavor to engage with all the broadcasters beginning the next term of Parliament, and will continue to hold the executive to account for the policy direction of the country. We'll move further down. This is the second day, or it's still the first day. Now we had the round table with the multi-choice and prime media. We'll just move to the recommendations there. The committee delegation made the following recommendations to the minister. Must ensure that all partnerships add value to the sustainability of community broadcasting. That collaboration should be with an intent to grow revenue and audience equitable to that of commercial broadcasters. That such partnerships and collaboration should be to empower youth, schools, women, and people with disabilities, especially in townships and rural areas. That such partnerships and collaboration should focus on content creation and respond to contemporary issues facing youth, and intending to strengthen the public broadcaster to fulfill its mandate. That the collaboration positions South African content globally using the public broadcaster as leverage. Ensure that ICASA continues to enforce and monitor multilingual programming of content in South Africa. Ensure that ICASA, where possible, and without encroaching on commercial arrangements, provides guidance to committee on the mass-carried deadlock between the SABC and MultiChoice. Ensure that all broadcasters adhere to the prescribed quotas of advertising regulations, and ensure that MultiChoice and SABC endeavor to collaborate more, especially in relation to bidding for sports broadcasting rights for the benefit of all South Africans. MultiChoice should consider, firstly, quantifying the value of carrying SABC channels on their platforms, and submit to the committee together with the social report, schools program, something like that. I'll fix that. Submit a proposal on alternative TV license collection models to support public service media. All broadcasters should consider this as an additional measure and in the spirit of partnerships and support for the growth of local content. Leverage existing capacity and systems infrastructure to collect levies for local content development, and more importantly, work together to realize digital switchover. We can move okay, so now, and then we had the interaction with the workers. So we have specific observations and recommendations related to that interaction. And as such, the committee, first and foremost, okay, so it says the following recommendations to the minister should, first and foremost, note that the committee is an activist and interventionist in stature and remains committed to resolving issues raised by workers. Ensure that the department and the board enable workers to have platforms to express themselves and receive feedback and be able to track submissions. Engage the board and executive of the SABC and report back to the committee on mitigations, including how inputs by workers to strategy of the organizations are considered. Ensure that HR provides in writing the employee structure and samples of contracts of the sales team. Ensure that the board explores alternative cost-saving measures other than the retrenchment. Ensure that management institutes employee wellness programs for workers who underwent trauma as a result of the insolvency of the SABC, the subsequent parliamentary inquiry into the fitness of the SABC board, and the turnaround strategy, which included the Section 189 retrenchment process. Ensure that the SABC board considers unearthing talent from within the organization to produce compelling content using SABC infrastructure to reduce outsourcing costs. And ensure that the department oversees the prime media partnership with the SABC and report back to the committee. The committee will create platforms to engage with the SABC workers and other entities in the portfolio and provide anonymity for submissions. The committee commits to normalizing the engaging of ordinary workers in future oversights to assess the well-being of continuously assess the well-being. The committee further urges the minister to engage the SAPC board and executive to prioritize and endeavor to report back to the committee on mitigations to resolve workers' concerns. So now we move to day 2. We were at SAPO on that day, interacting with the BRP as well as the workers there, the unions rather, through the workers. Okay, I think we're there. Yeah. Okay. So the committee delegation made the following recommendations. There is a need for continued engagement with ordinary staff, that the minister should improve the relationship between SAPO and Postbank and foster collaborative culture, that the BRPs should improve the competitiveness of SAPO, that the omnichannel strategy can be beneficial to SAPO's competitiveness, that the minister should do all possible to resuscitate SAPO so that it can deliver on its universal access mandate, that the minister must ensure that SAPO urgently receives working capital, that the minister should ensure that SAPO receives adequate support for its legislative mandate on the USO, that the DCDT fast-track the digitization of SAPO process to attract more youth, that should be resisted. There's something wrong with that one. Anyway, that I will fix that one, Slalo. That the BRP must ensure that there are adequate security systems to guarantee data integrity, that the minister ensures that the unencumbered assets, I'm not sure what that means, are not sold without due regard. We'll also look into that, Chair. I'm not sure what that means. That the minister ensures that SAPO staff is not retrenched only to be replaced by consultants. That the minister ensures that SAPO delivers on the 20-cent commitment to the creditors, and that emotions should not overrule a pragmatic approach to resolving SAPO challenges, and the sense of entitlement by SAPO to demand that they do business with post office. That's one too. There's something wrong with it, Chair. I'm not sure what's going on, whether it's even the same document. We'll take a look at those that have some corrections to do. That SAPO must undergo a rebranding exercise to improve brand reputation. That unanswered questions must be responded to in writing. And we mentioned a couple of those, which I think I stand to be corrected, were already submitted to the committee at some stage. You can scroll down, Hajira. I think that was scroll down a bit, because these were the things that they needed to, you can stop there. That SAPO should fast-track upskilling of staff so as to implement services. That SAPO should fast-track the zero-rated plan to provide email addresses to citizens. That at a convenient date, the committee will engage with the BRP, that the DCDD should prioritize employee engagement during BRP processes, that the minister urgently restores relations between SAPO and Postbank by way of facilitating the conclusion of service agreement, and report back to the committee in 3 months upon adoption of this report, that the BRPs will be rescheduled to appear before the committee to respond to the unanswered questions, and that other ways of communications between the committee and the BRP, and that there are other ways. Anyway, there's something wrong with the document, Chair. Apologies, honorable members. I think the formatting really messed up a lot of things. That the ICT Chamber of Persons with Disabilities should make submissions to the committee on the challenges to distributing material for persons with disabilities. And please scroll down. That the DCD as well as ICASA engage with the ICT Chamber of Persons with Disabilities and prepare. That's the same one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm really embarrassed with the
Mr.
record.
Maleka,
Yeah. What's that?
I doubt we can proceed like this.
Yeah, I doubt too.
I don't think we can proceed like this. Can you go and fix this document? And we will make it the first item on the agenda for Friday. And again, I insist you will have 20 minutes. So please do familiarize yourself with the content and exactly what we need to do. But it would be difficult for me that at the conclusion of presentation of this document, which parts of it you are disowning, I ask the members to approve it. So can I request that you withdraw it, you go back, you fix it, and we will get it in the agenda for Friday. Thank you.
All right, Slalo, apologies. I think the moving of the document from one person to the other just messes up everything. So I'll just fix the document and keep it in the laptop to present it from here. Thank you, Slalo.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I think sincere apologies for that. This matter has been outstanding for a while, and I'm not sure why we still seem to have problems with its presentation. But we will defer it to the agenda of Friday, which is our meeting in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, a virtual meeting where we're expecting to receive a number of presentations. I will await direction from the Secretariat whether the issue of the DCDT that we discussed at the beginning of the meeting has been referred to us for us to be able to put it on the agenda for Friday. So I apologize in advance if you get those documents with very little time to go through them. But as you will see, honorable members, it is out of our hands at this point in time. I also request that the advisors then start with the work promptly. You know, you did say that you had started, but we need to see whether we are going to be able to be ready to consider those two reports by Monday. If not, we may have to request a postponement of the two budget votes, which I think at this point is looking very likely. If there's no questions of clarity on procedure or where to from here, I am going to bring the meeting to a close. May I check if there's any issues any members would like to raise before we call for closure of the meeting? None. I see none. Okay. Thank you very much then, honorable members. We will meet in the house where, amongst others, we will be paying our tributes to the late member of our committee, Honorable Ketama Balastole. I wish you a pleasant day further, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. Good night. Bye.